to the mega crossover episode of the Drive-In and Mike Talks Movies. I am Aaron Lopez, and I am joined tonight by Mike Shea.
Hey.
Ben Norsworthy.
Hello.
And Aaron Brewer.
Hello.
We are here to talk some Avengers Endgame, and hopefully you guys are, first and foremost, before we even get started, we are going to be talking spoilers tonight.
So many spoilers. Oh, man.
So please do not come to us in 20, 30 minutes and say, oh, hey, well, you shouldn't have said that. You shouldn't have said that. Spoilers are going to happen, so if you have not yet seen the movie, you are listening either because you want the spoilers or you're stupid.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's no, like, we've been posting about this for over a week now. Like, this is a spoiler. Like, we'll talk some non-spoiler stuff in the beginning, but we're gonna break this thing down, like, scene by scene.
Yeah, we're gonna go through everything. We're gonna take some calls later on. Mike, you want to tell everybody who's listening how they can chat with us before then?
Yeah, so we are doing a live show, like I said, so there are a couple different ways you guys can interact with the show as we go on. So if you are on your computer, you're on the Spreaker page right now. There is a live chat option on there. I can see your messages here on the dashboard that I've got. Also, if you are in the Discord server, there is a link to the Discord server in the event page, and I'll be sharing that all over Facebook here now. You can join us and do a live chat in the Discord server. Later on in the show, we'll try and make some time to take your live phone calls on the air if you have questions or things like that. And as always, you guys can tweet at us during the show. My Twitter is at Mike Shea Comedy.
I'm at Get the Eck Out, EECHAUTE.
Aaron and Ben, you guys got any?
You can find me, my Offensive Foul podcast on Facebook, Offensive Foul.
Twitter, Aaron, AARON _ Brewer, BREWER.
Yeah, so you got just hit us up on everything, and we'll get you on here. But and then also we are currently, I believe we should be live on YouTube as well. There's not a chat on the YouTube, but you can, if you just want to stream us that way. There's so many different ways to stream this show and so many ways to interact with us as the show goes on. So if you have something you want to say, let us know, put it in the Discord, put it in Twitter, or save it for the end after we're done talking about it. You guys can give us a call.
All right, so trying to think about some of the things that we would do tonight, and first and foremost, so as I'm sitting and watching the movie on Thursday night, I made the active choice not to worry about trailers, because I was so nervous, and I was telling everybody before we got started, I was so anxious going into this film that I felt like I would throw up at any point in time. Just anxious, nerve, full of butterflies. And here we are, we're a couple hours away from the Battle of Winterfell, and I'm cool. I'm fine. I'm good. So clearly I have a little bit more personal stake in this Marvel Universe than Game of Thrones. But those of you who are listening, don't worry. We will be done before 9 o'clock. Hopefully a little bit more before that, so everybody here can get home, get cozy, get a box of tissues, and watch that. But yeah, so a few of the things that I thought would be really cool for us to do tonight is first and foremost to talk through some of the theories that we were thinking going in. Keeping sure that we don't talk about any spoilers quite yet, but any of the theories that we were hoping to see, or not necessarily hoping to see, because that might be a spoiler, but ones that we thought that we bought. Yeah, hey, this was a theory. Ben had mentioned one particular that he had heard, and I think everybody at this point had heard, but Ben, you want to go and explain the Ant-Man theory?
Yeah, there's a very serious theory out there that Ant-Man would shrink down, be projected up to Thanos' asshole, and then just expand to giant Ant-Man in the movie. I mean, you spend 20 minutes and just hash out the plan. So really, it's just not that complicated like the one they did in the movie.
Yeah,
but I mean, why not?
No, I had actually...
Would you expect it?
I'd seen a reaction from Paul Rudd when it was the Graham Norton show, and he was talking about it, and it's actually called the Thanos theory.
Wow.
I love it.
And it's like, yeah, and he even said, it's like, yeah, you've got many different orifices, ears, nose, mouth. He's like, no, yeah, if Ant-Man was gonna go that route, he's gonna go up the butt. He's gonna go for the comedic, the payoff.
In response to that, I know Josh Brolin tweeted out some picture of Thanos in the shower, butt naked, and was just waiting for you, buddy, or something like that.
That's too funny.
But I mean, What I mean that I mean, come on. I know it's a joke, but
Technically,
I mean, what was stopping Ant-Man from just like he did in the movie and get humongous like he's done in almost every movie he's in and just kick Thanos to like the next planet or something like that? Like what? I mean, I don't
the
think
physics of it. They were talking about, and that's what I thought was pretty interesting when now the Infinity War film had gotten so much attention. Everybody was kind of chiming in with what they thought how this would actually impact. And, the physics behind it all is quite interesting. And there were actually scientists that went to see what would happen if half of the universe had been snapped out of existence. What impact would that have? They were looking at the impact and the magnitude of something along the lines of the Infinity Gauntlet. And, how if somebody could take that much power, or what would it take for the reality of
genocide?
Machinery or something. Essentially, I mean, you're killing
genocide.
Yourself. But yeah, so there's all these different theories that were taken into play. But yeah, I think that my favorite one was probably the Thanos. Thanos one. You gotta say it weird to make it fit right. But another one I thought that was interesting from the get-go, and don't worry, we're not completely spoilers free yet, but I thought one that was pretty interesting from the get-go was the time traveler theory. This is one that people had really put their stock into once the trailer had dropped, and once we had seen Ant-Man and the Wasp in the quantum realm. So we'll talk about that one if that one comes to play, and if it does, how, and in just a bit. So. Did you guys have any specific theories that you thought were pretty funny or interesting?
I mean, I would say I heard a lot about the theory that the original Avengers team would have to switch places with the kind of new squad to kind of bring them back. That was a really prevalent one I think I saw pretty regularly. Mm-hmm. Of course, the Thanos theory was very, very prevalent. And then, of course, the retiring of kind of the old guard, Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. both having their contracts kind of at the end of everything. The theory that their characters would be written out in some way.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Do you guys think that the fact that we hear about the contracts of these actors, do you think it ruins anything with the film, or do you think that just as simply the production companies can just sign them to a longer contract?
I don't think it's so much affected anything with me, because on one hand, that because one of the questions is what qualifies as a appearance in a film. Does Robert Downey Jr.'s appearance in Endgame count? Or in Spider-Man count? Does his appearance in the post-credit scene of the Incredible Hulk count? It's a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because you also get situations like Hugo Weaving, who signed a 3-film deal. He did the one. Aaron Taylor Johnson, who played Quicksilver in Age of Ultron, he signed a 3-movie deal. He did the one. So a lot of times they'll lock these guys down just in case. But stuff like that, it's so easy to get in and out of.
Plus, we see this all the time in other things. I remember how disappointed I was over, was it last summer when Andrew Lincoln was leaving Walking Dead? He was like, I just don't want to. I need a break. And so you knew that something was going to happen. I guess it's, at least if you know something's going to happen, they don't leak anything to what is going to happen, so you can kind of anticipate. Because I was pretty sure that they were going to kill him off, and he's still alive.
Yeah.
Just not on the show right now.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of brings into the idea of the trailers. Why don't more companies do what the Russo brothers did with Endgame and with Infinity War, with this false
fake news?
Yeah, the fake news trailers.
Yeah, because they edited out a bunch of. They didn't have the Hulk in that. They cut him out. They did.
Yeah, for Infinity War, they had Hulk running when everybody's like rushing together to go fight.
I'm talking about the trailer, the second trailer that they dropped when they were all in their time travel suits and they're walking towards whatever.
Oh yeah,
you never saw the Hulk because
never saw any of him.
Yeah.
You didn't even see in majority of the sequences any of the outfits. Outfits were changed, and to that extent, I think it's interesting because yes, it's a spoiler. It's not something to the extent of figuring out who lives, who dies. But I think that they wouldn't even say if a character that wasn't like is it Ned? Is that Peter Parker's friend?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't even say if Ned was alive or not.
Yeah.
They were to that extent. They're like, no, that's a huge spoiler. We can't do that. And now you can see, like, okay, like knowing whether or not he lives or dies is important. Not on the grand scheme of things, but it's still pretty important. So,
I love how they wouldn't confirm or deny that, but they did confirm the Galaga guy from the first Avengers got dusted.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. But to the falsehoods and trailer thing, I mean, that's been going on since Age of Ultron. Mm-hmm. They cut and Civil War. I mean, in Age of Ultron, there visions in none of the trailers and the fight scenes you see. But then when you watch the movie, those exact fight scenes have Vision is in them. Mm-hmm. And then same with they cut him and Spider-Man out of the fight scenes in Civil War, mm-hmm. the trailers, because they didn't want that dropped, obviously, till it was too late.
Yeah.
So
I would say that's definitely the benefit of a larger production company handling these mm-hmm. kinds of things. They have the budget where they can do those kinds of cuts so that you still get the excitement of seeing those scenes without, you obviously know that those characters are going to be there. Smaller budget films are not going to be able to do those kinds of things because they can't afford to redo an entire scene without those characters, or adding a character in who's not going to be in the final product.
Yeah.
I had a student come and talk to me this past week about trailers, because they know my disdain for movie trailers and how I think they give away too much now. And they were like, yeah, I saw a trailer from this past week, and it was from like the 70s or 80s, and all they said was, they basically show like one or two characters like in a freeze frame, and then when the movie comes out, like, come see this movie. I'm like, yes, that's what trailer. Especially, with these kind of films, you don't need to market Endgame to me. I'm going to come see it. I don't think you had to market it to anybody. Iron Man, you probably need to market a little bit because, it's a first MCU film. You didn't know if people would actually come and see a superhero film. How popular was Iron Man before the first film? That's
the thing, is they started this thing off with, comic book sweaties know who Iron Man is, but the average person has little to no idea who Iron Man is. And to use that as the jumping off point, you needed a good, strong marketing campaign for that.
And there's a reason why Raimi's Spider-Man came out first. That they went with the bigger name. Granted, Marvel at the time didn't have the movie rights to do Spider-Man, but they went with who they thought they could go off of. Build a universe around. And in my opinion, a really strong choice. We'll talk about the impacts of it, as we go.
Can I ask a question? How nervous would you have been if somehow Marvel was able to keep wraps that there was going to be a Black Panther 2 and there was going to be Spider-Man 2, that we didn't know that those were happening here soon? How better would the experience been knowing, are they going to come back? Because literally after Infinity War came out, we heard that there was going to be sequels to us. Like, they have to come back. You know what I'm saying? Like,
there was a theory going around for a while, because when the first Far From Home trailer dropped, there was a theory going around that took place between Homecoming and Infinity War.
Okay.
Yeah, and that, for me, I bought into that. I felt, because you look at it and they're really in the trailers and like the basic summary of what is going on. There's nothing that says this has to happen after Endgame.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I agree. Like, I don't really look at those things anymore, unless in the headline it gives away something. I don't really seek out a whole lot in those senses, because it gives too much away. They can pull it as easily as they put it down. Yeah. They've still got a movie. Hell, Mike, you know about this very well. New Mutants, it's supposed to have been released like 20 years ago.
And the thing is, Disney they did a press thing after the Fox deal went through. They had a bunch of press over, and they showed the timeline of their films for 2019. They're still planning on releasing it this year.
Yeah.
I don't. And not to get too off topic, but I look at stuff like that and stuff like Dark Phoenix is like, well, this is, do I want to see a good Dark Phoenix movie? Sure. Do I think this is going to be a monumental waste of my time? Absolutely, because at this point the movies mean nothing, because this is it. They're done. I don't know if New Mutants is going to be they're going to make that into a jumping off point. We'll get into some stuff later on about whether or not there was a Phase 4 tease in this film.
I think there are a few.
Yeah.
Really?
I think there were a few.
Okay.
Yeah.
And them releasing Dark Phoenix, it's almost like, well, here you go, enjoy it, because we're about to reboot the shit out of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're about to like take this, so just enjoy what you know.
I'm kind of going off what you were talking about with trailers giving away too much. I know this is kind of an unpopular opinion, but I always thought, like, I love Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah.
I think the biggest mistake in marketing they made was putting the Hulk in the trailer.
Oh yeah, that's the big because if you look at Ragnarok, and I've told people that the closest we're ever going to get to World War Hulk or Planet Hulk or any of those comic series is Ragnarok. But we went into that knowing it, because if you follow those series and you see the way that Hulk is dressed and you know anything about Sakaar, you know that, hey, this is his storyline from Planet Hulk. And so, yeah, a complete, a lost cause there.
But can you imagine, like, the level your heart rate would have reached if you didn't know Hulk was about to show up in this movie?
My shit.
Like, oh man, heart attack. Like, that's one of my favorite non-spoiler reviews of this of Avengers Endgame. Got posted on Twitter. It was a guy, he had his Apple Watch, and he looked at all of his heart rate readings from the time that and he's like, all the ones like, your heart rate just reached this level. Your heart rate. I was like, that's the best non-spoiler, because I had the first 15 minutes of this movie spoiled for me last week.
I saw that
we'll get into what was spoiled for me in a little bit when we start talking about the movie, but that makes now, because I had the same thing happen with Infinity War. I had the whole opening sequence with Loki and Heimdall dying and Hulk getting his ass kicked spoiled for me last year. And it's just like, can I get one? Can I get one friggin' movie? Like, part of it's because I'm so plugged into the movie sphere nowadays.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. No, I try to stay away. Anything, even though they said spoiler-free review, I'm like, I don't care what you thought about it. I'm going to see it. I'll look at see what you thought about it after I see it.
Mm-hmm.
But... All right. Well, I think we've beat around the bush long enough. There's a lot to talk about here, Mike. You want to get into it?
Yeah. Well, let's do this. Let's take one quick break, and then it's just a real short one. And when we come back, this will give everybody a chance to breathe a sec. And then when we come back from this break, we're getting into spoilers. So everyone, just stick around for 1 sec, and we'll be back in just a minute. What makes a great radio show? How about a host that knows his stuff?
Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon. Isn't that a fish?
You need guests with lots of class.
And dude, what's up with this mic? Did somebody have this mic under their armpit? Because it smells.
Willing to stick around even at the end of the world.
There will still be cans of SpaghettiOs laying around.
Exactly, and Twinkies.
Yep.
Bam.
Yep.
And Keith Richards.
It's The Life with Don Smith. Tuesdays on WWSU 106.9 FM from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. and Fridays on the Eventide Entertainment podcast feed. Every week, join us for a brand new episode.
Keep doing a radio show, because we are idiots.
Be there or be square. Want to know where to find the best hidden musical gems on the internet? Mike Shea and Robert Yetter have got you covered. Tune in Wednesday nights at 5 p.m. for the latest episode of Track Record. Brought to you by Eventide Entertainment.
All right, and we are back. Hopefully you guys are ready, because we are. We've been, Aaron and I hung out last night, and we kind of talked a little bit, but I purposefully just didn't ask certain questions because I wanted to wait and save it for tonight. Save it for the recording. So how are you guys all doing, first and foremost? Oh, but first, okay, so everything from this point on, spoilers are our game. Say what you want, think what you want. Everybody listening at home, you have been warned. So,
all bets are off at this point.
At this point, if you're still listening and we spoil something for you, that's your own fault.
I feel like we should take bets on how many tweets or messages we get of people complaining about being spoiled at this point, just because it's going to happen.
To those people, I preemptively say I've been waiting 3 days to talk about this movie because I went and saw it with one coworker. Nobody else at work saw it, so we just sat in the office all weekend, just twitching like a crack addict threatened with rehab. Just I want to talk about this movie. So
Thursday morning, at my school, I made an announcement to the whole school. Every morning we do whole high school announcements, and I said, all right, a lot of you are going to see it tonight. Not everybody's going to get to see it tonight. Yeah, and then not everybody's going to get to see it this weekend even. So you don't get to spoil it, because we had kids that would some of them purposefully and some of them accidentally, would spoil things. Star Wars, when that came out, this past year, and Infinity War, and all these things. It's just like, hey, guys, like, a lot of people invest a lot of emotional connections into these things, so watch yourself.
Yeah, I had a kid come in gloating that he went and saw it Thursday night at midnight, and I told him, "You say one thing, I'm drop kicking you."
It's like, I will spend the rest.
Yeah,
we actually,
I will
I've
find
had a couple
way to ethically fail you if you talk anything about this. I don't even know what previews were. Just stop right there.
Kid sneezes, take 50 points off his test.
Exactly. Bam.
I have
I told you to be silent during this quiz.
a few international students from China, and all their friends went and saw
Of course,
it
they saw
like
it, like,
3
what,
days before or something like that.
A week ago.
Yep. And so he comes in, and one of my students, he's saying, so you want to know what happens? And I was like, dude, I will find a way to fail you, and I don't even have you in class, and I'll find a way.
I will come to your house and start a small fire.
Well, and what he said to me, I like halfway through, my heart skipped because I'm like, he's about to do it right now, and he goes, and so just so you know, Spider-Man, Black Widow, same species, and he walks away. And I'm like,
oh, so that's where you got that from?
Yeah,
okay.
Yep.
he sent that to me before I went into the movie.
Yeah, he says that to me, and I was like, "Oh, okay, that's pretty funny. That's pretty funny." So, okay, how are you guys doing? 3 days or less from having seen this.
They told us going in, there's nothing after the credits. You don't need to stay. Yeah, I didn't move. I couldn't. I was just in the ups and downs of emotions. I laughed, I cried, I cheered, I high-fived the weird dude sitting behind me. Like I went on an adventure, and to this, I mean, it's been a rough couple of days, all things considered.
Yeah, it's definitely a stressful situation. I mean, this is what, 15 years,
10 years.
Well, I think 2008,
11.
So 11 years.
Okay, I was like, I couldn't remember exactly when Iron Man came
22
out.
films.
Yeah,
22 films.
Like, that's a lot of investment in this entire franchise, and so it's a lot to think that this round of it is over. So definitely a lot, and the stress of avoiding spoilers, because it's usually very difficult. I work in an office with a lot of comic book fans, and I got lucky. One person went to see it Thursday night. I wasn't able to go until Friday, but that coworker was luckily out of the office on Friday, so I didn't have to deal with him. But usually avoiding spoilers is difficult for me, so I usually get a little bit of it spoiled. I knew absolutely nothing going into this. I was able to avoid anything, which was nice. But that made it all the more stressful because you don't have any idea what's about to happen at this point.
I was very happy. You think about it, you got two types of people that are connected to Marvel. You have the kids that we teach that only know all these Marvel movies, and then you got people like us who we've never really had this before because we had comic books or cartoons or things like that. And then we get these Marvel movies. I really went into this movie not wanting to know anything, just the actors and the plot. But this was thoroughly satisfying, and I think they just. And of course, they had 11 years to. Yeah, they had this 11 years plotted out. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah, I think that I read that Feige and the Russo brothers at one point sat down, and this was about 4 or 5 years ago, as they're getting ready to start the production on Infinity War, and they were figuring it all out, and that was just for these two films. Before that, they'd been teasing it since Avengers. Yeah. So since the sixth film, there'd been drops for the stones for Thanos, and so you think about that, and first and foremost, I think the MCU marathon that I did last weekend,
you brave son of a bitch.
Okay, since we're spoiler free at this point, there was nothing better for me than that because I'd just seen all of them. So like all the little nuances from them going back in time and seeing these elements, I was like, oh my god, hey, that was from here and that was from here. As soon as they even opened the elevator for that scene, I was like, oh, hey, this is the guy, and they're even standing in the same positions, and just that picture memory from this past weekend. So that was fantastic. I don't know if I would ever do it again. We
do got Star Wars wrapping up next December.
I'll
so maybe
sit through 8. That's
Yeah,
easy.
8 movies is easy. 22, not so much.
So yeah, that was. I mean, it was fun, but
Well, especially with the MCU, there's a point where there's a dip.
Yeah.
A couple of not as good ones in the middle, and your Iron Man 3, your Thor: Dark World.
Yeah.
But
well, and I made sure not to do them back to back without any sleep, because even though there are ones that I would feel comfortable sleeping through, Dark World and Iron Man 3 being 2 of those, I wanted to make sure I caught it all. And now I'm happy I did watch Dark World, but I'm kind of pissed off that it mattered so much to Endgame. Like, you had to have seen Dark World in some fashion to understand, past that, what the minimal elements
That was
you needed
somebody's
to.
big thumbs up or
It
middle
had to
finger
have
up.
been.
Like that's like
Thor: Ragnarok plays a prominent plot point in this movie.
It really, well, yeah. Say Thor's timeline is, I know we had a trilogy, and I'm glad that he's going to continue on, because I think that he really didn't find his stride until Ragnarok.
Yeah.
I think the original Thor was well done. It was kind of the Thor that everybody expected, but really finding his new niche, where Robert Downey Jr. playing Iron Man, finding a new voice for Iron Man. Thor was always Thor, just, this blonde-haired, old-timey speaking guy. Now I think, Hemsworth has a new idea of what he could be. So I'm glad to see that he's going to continue on.
That first one was just such a way to introduce Thor. Like, that was all it was there to do at that point, because they were going full guns ahead on the Avengers, and then Dark World was Dark World. So Ragnarok was really the first time outside of the Avengers movies I felt like that Thor actually got to have an arc. Mm-hmm. So
got my first interaction here. Andre is saying he's going to marathon it with when I go to Houston. So in June. I don't know if I want to do it that soon, but if he wants to watch it, I'll be his emotional support. I think I owe him at least that for all the interaction that I got on Twitter during the MCU marathon that I did. So Dre, I'll watch the good ones with you. I'll sleep during Dark World. So I laughed, I cried. I also too interacted with some strangers. It's kind of funny. It was when you're all invested in the same fashion. We were talking about last night. You had a lot of clappers.
Yeah, there was a lot of people clapping in the theater, but not at like the big moments. At everything. Anytime a character showed up on the screen, just random applause across the entire theater. Which, when it's a big character, I get it. But even when we finally see Thor for the first time, and then you see his 2 buddies sitting on the couch, they clapped at the 2 buddies sitting on the couch.
I'm on board with that one.
I was excited that they were back.
Yeah.
But I don't know if
I don't know that it's a clapping.
It wasn't a full round of applause.
Oh
but
no, it was. They loved it.
Oh, okay. For us, it was more of just kind of a yay. It was a golf clap.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, like it was to the extent that we kind of missed the beginning of the next line because they were clapping so loudly. We had that group of people.
We didn't have to worry about that because everybody at this point, this is 8:00 on Thursday, so basically these are the people who had to wait an hour or two before the first one. So we were all like, okay, yeah, you can clap, but you better be done in 2 seconds or shorter because I'm not missing a line. And we were all on that same page, so that was good.
We had a family, a husband and wife that brought their 4-year-old sitting next to us on the left side. Damn kids couldn't stay in their seats. And then to the right of us, we had a couple and another couple, and they brought their newborn.
Why?
They set the car carrier down, and that
Get a
baby was out.
babysitter.
I never heard that baby. I heard the 4-year-olds more than I heard the baby. The baby was out, but I looked at my wife and I was like, they're bringing a baby into here. Like, did they just set the car carrier down?
Now, did you actually see the baby, or was
Yeah, I
it
did.
just like a
But
way
after
for
the
them to
movie was
get
over,
a bunch of food in?
They got the baby out and baby burrito.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw one post that it was like 2 girls who said that Avengers Endgame's got me pregnant, and they walked in with like those giant mixing bowls that they stuffed under their shirts to look like they were pregnant, but they were just filled with snacks. I was like, that's actually really clever.
That's fantastic. I love that.
Yeah, that was. And everybody had seen these like bathroom break posts that were coming out, which that irritated me. I know you were on that that end of it too.
That made me so mad.
I'm not gonna leave anything, but at the same time, like I got a large drink. I drank about maybe a fourth of it the entire movie because I was too afraid of what would happen.
I got the big Avengers cup sitting right there behind the couch on the shelf. I took 2 sips out of that thing.
Yeah, I was too scared.
We didn't get anything. We were like, no, we're not playing that game.
So, funny story about that. So, as you guys can see right there, there's a giant, large Cinemark popcorn sitting on the shelf right there. So, last year when I went to see Infinity War, I wanted the cup. I always get the collectible cups when I can. Well, they were out of the cups. All they had was the large Infinity War metal popcorn tins. I said, okay, well, screw it. I'm not walking out of here without a collectible. So I took the Infinity War popcorn bucket with me this time, and I said, can I get a large popcorn in here? And I was going to split it with my buddy that I was with. And they said, no, we can't do that. You have to buy, the large popcorn. It comes in its thing. But they said, but we can put your refill in there. And I was like, okay, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but sure, let's just go ahead and do that. Thinking I was just going to have to pay like a couple bucks for like the refill. So they take my bucket and they fill it up with popcorn. As I'm getting my wallet out of my pocket, they plant that sucker down on the counter next to it. And they said, yeah, so your refill's in here, but here's the large popcorn you had to buy to get the refill. I was like, wow, this is exactly the situation I was trying to avoid by bringing in the bucket. So I go walking into the theater, my friends are sitting there, and everyone's just looking at me weird because I'm carrying that, plus a drink, plus the large Avengers tin. My friends just look at me just like, what the hell happened? Like, I don't want to talk about it. So if anybody wants popcorn, the guy told me it stays fresh for 2 weeks, so it's right there. But surprisingly, I devoured a large popcorn. I don't know how I did it. I hated myself the rest of the day.
Yeah,
I went
through. So Jordan and I brought. We snuck in some gummy bears and some M&Ms, but outside of that, we did that. Large popcorn, and we had to go to Sinopolis, or however you say it.
Oh man.
And they have some decent food there, and we split a little flatbread pizza too, because that was our dinner. We were like, all right, we're going into this movie with dinner, and that's about it. So, but okay, so clearly an emotional investment for all of us. Let's go scene by scene. Let's start it out. Clearly, there's gonna be a lot to talk about as we go along. Remember, you guys can reach out to us all through Twitter, on the Spreaker website, and you can chat with us there, as well as through the Discord feed that the chat that Mike has up as well.
Hey, Aaron, Kim from Houston, Texas is joining us in the Discord chat right now.
Oh, Kim, hey.
Lord Commander, hello. Hello.
Yeah, she. And she has also said that she would like to be excluded from the narrative. This to be excluded from the narrative, as that we are only in Houston for a few days. It did take me quite a while to do the marathon. Like, with the breaks, it ate up my entire Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. With basically, I was starting by about 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, and I was going till about 10 or 11 at night. So, yeah, it would eat up all of our time. So I'm with you there, Kim. Maybe we can watch one of them. I do want to see her reaction to Infinity War, because I heard it was pretty brutal. So she's going to be pretty pissed off that I mentioned that. But yeah, absolutely. So reach out to us. Let us know as we get through some of our reactions. If you guys have some reactions to those as well, let us know. So first and foremost, I want to know, Mike, what got spoiled for you? Because my first reaction of my heart sinking was this opening sequence before the title card with Hawkeye with his family, and as soon as I saw them out there, I'm like, oh god, they're gonna kill his family.
Well, they show the one shot of him showing the daughter how to fire an arrow in one of the trailers. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, well, his daughter's gonna eat it.
Yeah,
but,
I thought that one was gonna go.
Yeah, not the whole of them. I had a feeling. So what got spoiled for me was everything up to, and going forward at this point, everybody, if you haven't seen the movie, go away. We're about to just spoil everything for you here. So somebody let slip to me that I guess what was everything up to where Thanos says he destroys the Infinity Stones. So what happens after they find that out, which is Thor going for the head, that part I didn't know. But basically the guy said, yeah, I really liked it. I said, hey, tell me about it, but don't spoil anything. No. So Thanos destroys the Infinity Stones. And I was like, you son of a biscuit. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's clearly a pretty big spoiler.
So everything up to that point had been spoiled for me. But so then getting to see Thor take Thanos' head off, while Thanos is in his jammies, seems kind of rude. But
Well, he did snap his fingers and destroy half the universe. I think we're past the point of rude.
So everything going forward from there, I was completely blank slate on. So it wasn't too bad, but it was enough that I was like, that's one thing he could have just left out for me. But getting to see Thanos make soup kind of makes me wish we could get a Thanos cooking show. Would have been nice.
Well, and I think it's interesting because in the comics, him going to that lifestyle, that farming lifestyle, is his punishment.
Yeah.
After they defeat him, they don't kill him in the comics. Warlock is too powerful for him, and he's punished through his consequence of everything by having to go, live through the dirt, and just live a commoner's life. Whereas this one, it was his relaxation. It was his own reward. So I thought that was kind of an interesting, portrayal of that.
Nebula called it the garden or something like that. Yeah.
So I thought that was an interesting flip. But yeah, I think that we should have seen it coming that Hawkeye's family, in some sense, would have bit the dust. Haha, no. I wasn't trying, but halfway there, I was like, well, I'm gonna lean into the pun.
They disintegrate.
I mean, I always assumed that it was going to happen based on the trailers.
Yeah, with him.
Why else would he be in that mode?
Why would he be Ronin?
Ronin.
Yeah, the Ronin character. Why would he be at that point if he had anything else to live for?
Yeah.
I mean, I assumed they're gone. I didn't necessarily know they were going to show it in the movie, but I assumed, the assumption of all the characters that we didn't see, who we later found out through various releases or whatever, were disintegrated.
Rest in peace, Gallagher guy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, when he turns and sees the only dust, he only sees his daughter.
I don't even think he sees the dust. I think he's just.
Well, we do.
We
We
do.
do. Yeah.
But she's gone. Yeah.
And it's just your heart sinks, and you're like, "Oh, this is how they're going to start this film." Damn it! Yeah. You knew that it was going to be an emotional ride, and I love how in these reviews that were coming out beforehand, one thing that I remember reading was that this was the most emotionally risky film that MCU had ever put out. Like, they really were seeing what they could get away with as far as pulling on the heartstrings, and damn, they really did.
But I also think this was a good way for them to reinforce the how important and how devastating this was, because it'd been a whole year since we've seen Avengers, and how we felt after the end of that movie, and there, Nick Cage going away and all that stuff. Or Nick Fury, sorry.
Nick Cage. Spider-Man Noir was in this movie?
I didn't know that Ghost Hunter was in it.
Yeah. But I think that was just a good way to reinforce the devastation that Thanos left behind, is just to reintroduce, another one, somebody that we're familiar with losing something very important.
That's why I thought that end credit scene of Ant-Man and the Wasp was so important, because it was a few months later, but it was kind of their way of reminding us, because Ant-Man and the Wasp is a very fun, lighthearted movie.
Yeah.
And that was kind of their way of reminding us, by the way, don't forget, shit still sucks.
Yeah, when Jordan hadn't seen that, I went and saw that one in theaters by myself when it came out, and so she watched it with me during the marathon, and we get to the end, and I'm like, all right, you ready to hurt? And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, just watch. And she's like, and it was the fact that all of them, she wasn't even concerned that Lang is still stuck in the quantum realm. She's just like, they're all gone.
Right.
And she's like, everybody's gone. You're like, yeah, we know. So yeah, it was, I like that. I think that was a good callback. One of the theories that I read, I was kind of hoping that it was true, was that Endgame was a fake name. That when they go to the title card, it would have been what they originally had wanted it to be, Annihilation. Which for me, had that happened, I would have been even more emotionally devastated, thinking, oh, we're going to lose a lot more than we eventually did.
Yeah.
We actually kind of got out of the film without having lost a whole lot.
Not a whole lot.
As far as numbers. I mean, what we lost was pretty powerful, but, I think that for me, you look back and you're like, oh, we got out of this essentially with losing 4 characters.
Yeah.
From where we started. And only 3 of them were killed, in a sense.
Yeah.
So.
But, yeah, casualty count, I mean, as far as, you said numbers go, was minimal, but the weight of kind of everything that happens, whether it's a loss or a gain, or like nothing in this film felt wasted for me. Everything felt deliberate. Everything felt like it had a purpose and had a reason for happening.
Yeah, the pacing of it too. For me, it didn't feel like 3 hours.
Oh,
I
man.
agree. I looked down at one point at Jordan's watch, and she showed me it was almost 2 hours in, and I'm like, oh my god, we've hit the last hour that they said is going to go by like nothing.
Yeah.
And I hadn't even thought that we were 2 hours in. So
Kind
the
of like
pacing,
a dominoes. Once you hit that first one, all of them, it happens so fast. Like, yeah, it didn't feel like 3 hours of a movie. Yeah.
Well, similar to Infinity War, I mean, both movies kind of start off at 100 and just go. And there's not really a lot of downtime, a lot of lag time. There's always something happening, pushing the story forward. And every scene, Infinity War and Endgame alike, seem to carry some kind of weight. Like, there's no diminishing returns. Everything kind of gets paid off in the end in some way.
It feels kind of like the Harry Potter series where, in the beginning they start off very fun and light, but as the movies go on and the kids get older, there are a lot of serious adult consequences. And we kind of got that with like the first Iron Man, the first Thor, and even almost the first Avengers movie. And then, as the movies go on, there are a lot more real consequences. And I would say this was probably the darkest Marvel movie.
yeah, I could agree with that.
Out of this whole 22, this is probably the darkest. I mean, there's some...
I don't know. What about the Dark World?
Get out.
You're done.
No, I agree. And for a 3-hour movie, there really, in the amount of quantity wise, there really wasn't a whole lot of action. I mean, there was maybe 45 minutes of action in this movie, like really like big superhero action.
But man, those 45 minutes.
Yeah. But yes, exactly. Those 45 minutes were well worth it. So I think like they really built up the character, the reactions, I still seeing Rocket and how devastated he was holding Nebula's hand at one point. Like, to me, Rocket's just a smartass. I think everybody, he's not a relatable character.
But weren't you glad he played a much bigger role in this than you probably thought he would have?
Yes.
You would probably go towards like Quill or...
I never would have expected Rocket to be the surviving member, essentially.
He was also the voice of reason for Thor.
Yeah.
Like, Thor is just wanting to drink and wallow, and you would have thought Rocket would have been right there with him, but he especially because we get that 5-year jump. Rocket kind of we see Natasha kind of talking with her new Avengers, I guess you could call it. Rocket, I guess, taking up kind of a leadership role, and I guess kind of coming into his own as far as his responsibility goes.
Well, I think we saw the realization of that at the end of Guardians Volume 2, where he's sitting there with Quill, realizing that he's been an ass, he's been mean for no reason, that he just needs to, like, accept the family around him. And as soon as he accepts that family, he loses them. So I think that, he was going to do whatever it took to get that family back. In comparison to Quill, who I don't think ever would have, had he survived the snap, I don't think he would have been worried about getting the family back. He would have been worried about getting Gamora back.
Yeah.
Some of the other characters would have been, and who the hell knows what Groot would have wanted back. He would have wanted
his video game,
Groot,
probably.
Yeah. So we can go one of two ways with this, and we can either go scene by scene, or we can kind of just go for it and see what we hit. We do have some time to fill. It's not like we've got to rush through this. Yeah. But do we want to start at the top and work our way through, or do we want to start at the impact scenes, the where the questions are going to be, really? I'll leave it up to you guys, because I could do.
I need scene by scene to remember stuff.
All right,
let's go in order.
Right.
I think that's kind of the best way to work through.
So I think the next thing we need to talk about is with Nebula and Stark up on the ship on Quill's ship. They're standing up, or they're up there, and essentially they the only two to survive the snap from Titan. And they'd found a way to get off of the planet, to get into hyperspace or hyperdrive, and to make the jump, but it wasn't enough fuel. It was enough to get them a little far, but now they're stuck in space, and they're running out of oxygen, they're running out of food, and you essentially get the goodbye from Stark. Stark is speaking
to... He looked skinnier, too.
Oh, yeah. And, do you think that was CGI, or do you think he actually lost some weight?
I think it was CGI, because even in the scene, like we see later, where he gets back to Earth, kind of that uncanny valley thing. You can tell it looks a little off, but they did a great job with it.
Yeah.
But I also, that was also a great detail that I like they did, because he would look, almost Christian Bale in The Machinist-esque.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I wanted to know what your guys' take was on this whole interaction between Nebula and Stark, because we had seen in the trailers that they were going to interact. I think one of the scenes is like them both working on things together, and we see that's in the movie. It's part of a kind of a backtracking montage, really.
Yeah.
Over when he's recording his message to Pepper. But what do you think as far as those two go? Because they're both very different characters. They don't interact a whole lot after this, but I think their storylines actually match up pretty closely when you look at the details of them. But what do you guys think about this opening sequence and essentially Stark's his first goodbye?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was an interesting scene because, like you said, these are not two characters that we've ever seen really interact with each other, and they're kind of very, very different characters. Nebula's always been very cold and distant, and she's looking at what's logical, and then you have Tony Stark, who sees everything as a big joke in a lot of instances. So it's very interesting to see the two of them and how they end up interacting. I really enjoyed when you can tell they're clearly running out of food, and Tony goes to share some with Nebula, and she just pushes the bag back at him because clearly he's the one in this instance who's suffering more. Yeah,
that image, and then the little small sequence with them playing the paper football. I thought, I mean, that was great. It was him kind of saying like, "No, you're doing it wrong." It was him being his kind of cocky self, funny, just smart ass of a character that he is, but also with a filter on it of like, no, we're doing this because we have nothing else to do, and we're going to find enjoyment if it kills us.
And really, this is something new for her because she's not used to opening herself up to other people. It's almost like we're watching her learn how to socialize with other people that she's for the past few movies or X amount of years, she's been around her sister and Thanos, and that's the socialization she's had. So we're kind of like watching her socialize with new people and learn how to socialize and learn how to be a part of a group.
Well, especially how we see her in this movie, where it's the past self versus the current, the present self. How far she's come as far as just because obviously she's got her emotional nuances, from the way she was raised by Thanos and working with Ronan and having to live in Gamora's shadow. And so just the concept of fun is so alien to her that she's just like, when she thinks she's lost the football game, she's clearly devastated. And he's like, hey, it's fine. It's fun. Look at that. It's almost like he lets her win. Just like, look at that. You won. Wasn't that fun? Yes. I want to do it again.
Yeah, her character arc was one that I really didn't expect or that I would want to see.
But she has a big role in the comics.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's a lot bigger.
Well, she's one of the ones who actually helps take down Thanos.
Yeah.
She wields the Infinity Gauntlet at one point, as well as pretty much everybody at one point or another. But yeah, I would never thought going into it that I would want more Nebula. Going into the first Guardians of the movie, I thought she was kind of a side character who was good for plot, was good for Gamora essentially. But I think as we went on, you started to relate to her and empathize with her.
Looking at where she started at in the first Guardians to where she's at the end of Endgame, would you say she's had one of the biggest arcs in the MCU as far as character development goes? Maybe not biggest, but bigger. I mean,
bigger, yeah. I'd say Stark is probably the largest.
Well, yeah,
but out of all of them, who would have guessed her?
Oh yeah, I would never have even put her in the top 5 of like. Hell, it took forever for us to even get her as a character, and she's only been in 3 movies.
Yeah. I would say she's definitely. I would think she's changed the most.
Yeah,
like obviously the main characters have had the biggest arcs in terms of kind of just experiencing their stories, but at the end of the day, even though Tony has had a huge arc, he's always been good. He's always been, from the first movie when he puts on the Iron Man suit and kind of starts that journey, he's always been the hero.
Yeah.
I mean, Nebula was a sidekick to the main bad guy for the entire series, and was really an antagonist from her first experience, and then to go completely full circle to be fighting alongside the people that she was fighting is huge for her.
Especially in Guardians 2, where that whole interaction she has with Gamora, the whole, I just wanted a sister line. And,
Right.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's interesting too, because she said, very similar to Rocket in Endgame, she says, we became friends and then I lost you. It was like as soon as they had finally accomplished this battle of sisterhood that they could never really accomplish, that's when she was taken by Thanos. So I mean, I like Nebula's arc. I think that Nebula, she's going to continue to be a really strong character, especially going into Volume 3 of Guardians.
Probably a much bigger role.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're thinking Volume 3 is going to be looking for Gamora.
Yeah, I mean, we assume.
Yeah.
That ending scene with the Guardians that's the only place that I think they can go.
Just kind of like Star Trek 3, just, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, search for Gamora.
Yeah, they're going to be. I mean, they're going to be looking for her, and
I almost hope they don't find her.
I still, even after seeing that, she isn't back, but Gamora is back. It's a different form of Gamora, but I still wish they would have just left her dead. I think that the impact of Thanos' choice is so much more powerful if she stays. I know they go back in time and it's not her and they have to figure it all out, but
Yeah, because she was one of the ones going into this. I thought, well, she's dead. She's dead.
Yeah.
And then when how I saw that they kind of weaved their way and wrote her back in, I was like, okay, I can accept that. And that's pretty good. But going into the film, I was like, yeah, she's dead.
But is she back? I mean, she's because the one we got.
it's not the Gamora we lost in Infinity War,
Right?
Yeah.
But it is Gamora.
But I'm saying
Because there's a new soul for the Soul Stone.
well, that's true.
But with the timeline, it was her soul was never there in the first place. So
And that's my biggest thing with any movie that has time travel is the frustration of, well, if this Gamora from 2014 stays in 2019 or 2022, I think is the time frame that we're looking at now. Did any of the previous things, like, was Thanos ever able to get the Soul Stone? Because, it's just this whole convoluted mess.
But that's kind of where you get. And I know we're jumping ahead a bit here, but you get into the part with Steve returning the stones to where they came from.
Right.
I liked the way that we kind of, and we'll get into this more, but the way they explain the way that their version of time travel works and
Time heist.
Yeah.
because it's, and I mean, seeing the Sorcerer Supreme and showing like what happens if you take it away, that was a good visual. But unfortunately, still, like you said, with Rogers returning everything, doesn't him? I mean, granted, this is in the final scenes, but doesn't him staying there change everything?
Yeah.
I don't think so, because the way she made it sound was it was taking something away from the timeline. In his case, he was kind of adding something to it.
Him?
Yeah.
So what happens to her husband that she married?
Well, yeah, and that's the whole thing. What happens to her husband?
It doesn't matter. It's true love, guys.
Does anything
Are we introducing polygamy?
Well,
started
that's
somewhere.
not even the biggest.
It started
concern for
somewhere.
me.
Maybe Steve Rogers was the first polygamist. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's not even the biggest concern for me. I mean, you have none of the events of after the first Avenger, none of Captain America's storyline is the same anymore.
Yeah,
because he's not. I mean, unless there's two Steve Rogers just wandering around at the same time. I mean, how does that work?
The way I understood it was that it doesn't, changing the past doesn't alter your reality. It simply just creates a new one, almost like it's creating a new dimension. Like time itself is a dimension of reality, not this minutes, seconds, hours, years thing like we see in every time travel movie ever. It's kind of like what they tease in Back to the Future, which is creating that alternate timeline. So to me, it's like he didn't alter what had already happened. It just kind of created a new dimension of reality.
Yeah, I'm just thinking because when he goes back to the 70s or whatever time frame he decides to go back to, technically the Steve Rogers from Captain America First Avenger is still in the ice.
Still frozen.
Like, he's still frozen, so
thing.
do they still find... Like, it's just the question of, do they still end up finding him years later and bringing him back? And then you have old Steve Rogers who's living with Peggy Carter, and then new Steve Rogers who's Captain America. But then it makes... Well, I think again, we're jumping really far into the end of the movie.
We're also trying to break down the logistics of of time travel science, which doesn't exist.
What's funny though is that they actually said that there were scientists and theorists who said that they got pretty close to how they think it would work. You know, like with going back in time in the grandfather theory and all those kinds of things. That I think that. It's pretty interesting for me. I think my biggest question, first and foremost, I gotta let you know that Andre's with you, Mike. He doesn't care about the time. History be damned, it's true love.
Yes.
I think in the end, I think we can all agree that we're happy with it. But my question is kind of going off what Aaron said is, we don't know where he went back to.
Yeah.
He might not have ever gone in the ice in the first place. Which in that case, though, is the Tesseract still being used by Red Skull? Like, all these things, I think, we could talk about all the different elements of history in the MCU that are affected by this concept, and that in itself would eat up the rest of our time.
But it doesn't matter. Because it ended the way a lot of comic books fan wanted it to end, which was him getting to be going all the way back to them saying, "Save that dance for me, and we'll dance when you get home." So these minutia points of I was arguing with somebody that I work with, and he was like, "Well, how Tony get those stones?" I was like, "Doesn't matter. It's Tony Stark.
Yeah,
it's Tony Stark. He has.
I can sit here and talk about the nanotech and the blah. He got him.
Yeah."
If that's your big...
If you're going into a movie looking for that stuff, screw you.
If you're trying to inject real-world logic into a movie like Avengers Endgame, don't go see the movie.
How the hell does a raccoon talk?
It's magic. It's magic.
So, kind of jumping back a little bit, just to kind of keep
just a bit,
just to get back to the first 15
Just taking some pin particles, going back in time, going to replace some Infinity Stones.
Did you know it was going to be Captain Marvel that came to the rescue, or did you think it was Gwyneth Paltrow?
I did have somebody a coworker who I can see how this works now, at least through them, because I said I was under the impression that with Miss Marvel coming through back to answering the call along her way back, she found this ship.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the impression I got, because how the hell else would they have known they were out there?
Yeah.
So, but he had said his theory was that no, she still came back, and then she was out searching for them anywhere near Titan, and she found them. But still, they had jumped. I mean,
well, because there's the scene from the end of Captain Marvel, the post-credit scene, that wasn't in Endgame. That was her showing up at the lab saying, "Where's Fury?"
And that's what I was under the impression. But I mean, he had said, and this is where I kind of agree with him, is that when she comes back, everybody knows her. There's not the introduction.
Yeah.
There's a couple that don't know her, but so
there was something that happened between the end of Captain Marvel and her finding them in Infinity War.
Yeah, and was it just simply the did that post credits actually happen?
Yeah.
I think it did, but there was an element of how did she end up out there? How did she know to look there? And if she knew how to look there, then why didn't anybody else? Because they
did they know?
So
how does any of the Avengers on Earth know?
So what I think it may have been is something akin to the scene from the end of Captain Marvel wasn't a scene from Endgame. It was a legit post-credit scene, just bridging that gap.
Yeah.
She shows up. Where's Fury? They explain what's going on. Mm-hmm. She knows that because odds are all these years she knows who Thanos is at this point. I would bet money.
Yeah.
Working for Xandar and all that, they know who Thanos is.
Well, she acknowledges. I mean, she knows who all of them are.
Yeah.
Because they ask her at one point, where were you when we were dealing with all this? And she says there are other planets besides Earth, and the other planets didn't have you guys.
Exactly.
She knows who the Avengers are. She knows their existence, and
odds are word has started to spread.
Yeah, I always read it as. I mean, I read that scene as the post-credit scene in Captain Marvel happens, and then we have a little bit more time where she's working with them. Then when they pick up the scene where they're all just sitting there talking before she's found Tony and Nebula.
It's a little ex machina, but you know, maybe it was a studio cut. But also, you know, we see that they're able to detect where like these bursts of radiation have taken place.
Maybe they read the jump.
Sure, something. It's we had to. Maybe it was a studio cut. Maybe they were kind of like, cut the scene, it's fine. I don't know. But it's a little ex machina. But with something like this, again, if that's the thing you're going to have a problem with, then the rest of the movie falls apart.
Yeah.
She finds him.
Well, she brings back Nebula and Tony from space, and they rejoin the remaining Avengers who've been trying to figure out where Thanos is. It's been a few weeks, and they haven't found him. They said, though, that when he originally, the decimation first happened, that there was this huge burst of energy that had never been seen before, of cosmic energy, and they found it again that had just happened a day or two beforehand. So they were like, okay, that's where Thanos is. So you've got Thor, James Rhodes, the War Machine, Captain America, Rocket, Black Widow, and Bruce Banner, along now with technically Nebula and Tony, who I don't believe went to the garden. No. I think, Nebula was probably there. I don't think
Nebula was there.
She was in the ship.
Yeah,
she never went down.
She did. She does because Thanos thanks her.
The Hulk wasn't there.
The Hulk wasn't. Yeah. Bruce was.
He was in.
Bruce was in the Hulkbuster suit.
Yeah, I think Tony's the only one who doesn't go because at that point he's still like
they sedated him because he was being
he lost his.
I mean, reasonably so. You've been there, trapped on that ship for 3 weeks.
You held Peter Parker as he disintegrated.
Yeah,
You're probably feeling
well, and he even mentions when he first talks when he goes back to Rogers and he said like, I told you this was going to happen. Yeah. We tried to set up something because we needed to protect the Earth, and you guys said, nope, we don't need to do that. Yeah. And like calling back to the real hatred that they established for each other through Civil War. Yeah. Like not like the willing hatred, the unwilling, I'd say, because they still wanted to be friends.
When they first see each other, they hug.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't get mad until they start talking.
Right. And the realization comes back.
Yeah.
So they go to the garden to basically get these stones back from Thanos and undo the snap. When they get there, though, Captain Marvel goes down, and I said Miss Marvel earlier, I just realized. So
I mean, technically same character, but you know.
Yeah, and hopefully not in the MCU at least. I'm hoping for some Kamala Khan later.
Right.
You know, we'll talk about that when we get to what we think is going to come happen in Phase 4. But Captain Marvel goes down and checks it out and says there's nothing, it's just him. And so they go down there and they just beat him up. And
I mean, he loses his arm in the first 2 seconds.
Yeah. Which, how did they not think to do that through the entire Infinity War?
That's everyone's biggest issue with Infinity War is you have Doctor Strange and you have Scarlet Witch, who both have the capability of creating these force fields and creating these energy fields that could very clearly, because it's been shown at other points in the movie, could sever a limb from someone. No one thought to just cut his arm off.
Yeah, because Strange actually in Infinity War does sever.
To the big dude.
To the big dude.
As soon as
cut his arm off. Okay, remember, it's one of the not Maul.
Let's see him wear a right-handed glove without a right arm.
One of the Black Order. Yeah. I forget the big guy.
So we all know who the big guy is. But he doesn't. And I mean, I know that like if he doesn't, we don't get this movie. But at the same time, you're like, you're what are you willing to do to win versus not willing to do to win, but you're also willing to do in smaller battles.
You also have...
You'll do it to the lackeys, just not the big bad.
And the moment that happened, I leaned to my friend Karina, I was kind of like, why didn't they do that in the first movie?
Yeah, it was so quick.
Maybe, I mean, granted, I mean, they were throwing everything at Thanos in that first movie. I mean, you know...
They tried,
There's that, I mean, they literally throw spaceships at him, and, you know, Tony gets the one drop of blood, so...
Yeah, you did all that. I still love that line. All that for a drop of blood. And you're like, oh, man.
So at this point, they're just kind of like, screw it, let's just try and chop his arm off.
Yeah.
I almost wanted a moment of like, oh, it worked.
So they could have even done that too when in the Infinity Wars. They could have, you know, when they had him under sedation. Doesn't Tony have those lasers on him that he just instead of trying to just pull the glove off?
Yeah,
but we needed to have a scene where Star-Lord ruins everything.
Yeah,
twice.
The worst.
So we get there to the garden, and Thanos gets his arm cut off. He They go to grab the gauntlet and all the stones are gone, but he's still holding the gauntlet. But you also notice that the hand and his whole arm up to his like half of his face is burnt. It's
wrecked.
It's damaged, showing that foreshadowing and giving us this insight of, hey, it takes a toll on whoever uses this. It's not just as simple as it looks. So you see the damage that he has done. They go to look at the gauntlet and all the stones are gone. So not a big surprise to Mike, but to everybody else, the stones have been, the stones have been destroyed. That's what that second blast was a couple days before.
So did they ever give a reason why he did that?
He didn't want anybody to undo what he had done,
Okay.
because he knew that they would try, and he knew that it had to happen.
Yeah.
There's a line that he says that, and he's
It's
like,
something like with these stones comes temptation or something like
Yeah.
that, and he didn't want to take the risk.
yeah. And so he's thanking Nebula. So we knew Nebula was there, and Nebula actually says, and it's a callback to a line from Infinity War, where they all believe that he's lying, that he must have hid the stone somewhere, and she says, "My father's many things, but he's not a liar." Which is a callback to when he says to her, "I taught you everything, and that's why you're so good at it. But I never taught you to lie, so that's why I know you're not. That's why I know you're lying. You're not good at it." So there's that moment, and then Thor just cuts his head off, which to everybody's dismay, I think it was Banner who said, "Why'd you do that? Like, now we won't find out." He's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like aiming for the head, which it should have been a satisfying moment, but at that point you knew it was a negative action, because we're 20 minutes into the movie and we've lost our antagonist.
And for me, not knowing that he was about to lose his head, I immediately sat there in the theater with my head dropped on, or my mouth dropped open, just like, now what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now what the hell's supposed to happen?
Yeah, and so at that point, I genuinely was not sure. We have no inclination of, the quantum realm or the time travel that's going to happen. So for a hot second, I'm sitting there like you saying, what are we going to do for the next 2.5 hours? Or what's going to be the turn?
2 hours and 50 minutes at that point. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it was, there's still so much more to do, so I'm happy that they jump ahead 5 years, and because we need some time to go through before we can actually do anything, because of the monumental actions of decapitating Thanos.
Yeah, there was definitely some pretty heavy reactions when the 5 years later came up on the screen, kind of slowly, one word at a time. Like, there were audible gasps in the theater, because I think it adds a sense of, like, oh shit, like, these are long-standing consequences. Like, everyone assumes, like, oh, well, something went wrong, but they're going to fix it quickly in the span of this movie. And the fact that it shows 5 years has passed of them dealing with all of these people being gone just adds even more weight, I think, to what's happened.
And you have this feeling, because if they had just tried to sit there and recover stuff right away, you figure, okay, well, if they're able to just get over this and just keep moving, it added weight to the loss. It made it feel like, wow, they really just didn't know what else to do. Mm-hmm. And so when you get the scenes later where they're trying to decide, is it worth going back and trying to undo what happened, because some certain people have moved on and made pretty nice lives for themselves. Do they want to give up the progress they've made?
Yeah.
It adds weight to things that haven't happened yet.
In that 5-year jump, we actually see the first, which is kind of an interesting little nugget of information, the first openly gay character in the MCU. Was it Joe Russo?
Joe Russo.
I couldn't remember which one it was, but one of the brothers, directors, is the first cameo that we see. He is in that self-help group, along with also the creator of Thanos, which was another one of those. It's the older bald gentleman that's in that group. So they've got some guys there talking about what's going on, and like you said, like, how are they recovering from what's going on? How are they trying to deal with it? And there's the whole idea that Russo's character had gone on a date, and the guy that he went on a date with was crying by the salad, and the other guy, he was crying by dessert. So it's like, even 5 years later, no one has recovered. Even those that recover are kind of ignoring what has happened. We do see, though, when Rogers goes back to the Avengers compound, Black Widow is there, and she's kind of taken up the mantle of the leader of the Avengers in a way, which is when we see, like you had mentioned earlier, this idea of these newer Avengers, like what's left of them, with War Machine, Marvel, Rocket,
Okoye.
Yeah, Okoye and her, so the 5 of them. And this is the one where I thought there was, and I was backed up by people making note of it in all the Easter eggs videos. I think this is the first hint at Phase 4.
Right.
When Okoye says that there was an earthquake in the Atlantic Ocean, that's Namor to me.
Oh.
Because any character could have said it, but the fact that it was a character from the Black Panther universe, and the Black Panther and Namor are big villain or rivals throughout the comics. So I think they're going to introduce Namor.
I did not catch that.
I remember the line.
Yeah, I remember the line. I'd be curious if it's an actual hint that they're going to introduce him in the future, or if it's just kind of one of those Easter eggs of just like,
this
that
is the second
exists in
time
everything.
though, because actually, and I can't take credit for this, but when you've got when Fury goes to tell Stark that they're going to do the Avengers and that Romanoff found him unfit to join, when he's like in his factory or his office, you see in the background all these little spots on a map of where the potential people for the Avengers could pop up. There's one in the middle of Africa and there's one in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So they have been teasing Namor now at least twice. It could just again be a tease,
right.
But the fact that Feige and Marvel have kept everything so close to the chest, we know nothing of the characters they're thinking about. Right. So this could potentially be one of them. So
that'd be interesting, especially coming off of the hit of Aquaman.
Yeah, they know it can be done. They just would make sure that they don't recreate Aquaman.
Yeah, with recreated Black Panther.
Maybe
I love Aquaman. I love Aquaman. I'm just saying.
Honestly, Namor might be the villain in Black Panther 2. That's what I would say.
I can see that.
That's how you can introduce it and then see if you want to try and spin him into an antagonist turned protagonist.
Yeah.
So they're there, and at this point, Captain Marvel says her line of, hey, I've got some things to do. You probably won't see me for a while. And for me, I'm like, oh, so I caught on to that. She's going to come back at the end.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? I don't know if you guys thought the same.
I forgot about it, honestly. There was so much going on.
There was.
Until her introduction at the end, her reintroduction, I kind of forgot about it because of everything else going on.
Yeah.
I wasn't sitting, unlike my wife, I wasn't sitting there the whole movie like, where's Captain Marvel? When's she going to come back? When's she gonna... I honestly was just so sucked into what was going on that I was like, oh yeah, she did go away.
Well, I have a question on that, and this is going to say buck the trend of going scene by scene. Say, I want to know what you guys thought. Captain Marvel's not a big player in this movie.
No.
No.
She's present. She does have large impacts to the plot, but they are very, very small in comparison to as far as quantity.
Would you say about maybe in total 25
Yeah,
minutes
I'd
of
say
screen
25
time?
minutes.
Give or take, yeah.
So do you think that there's a reason for that? And if so, what? Because like I've got my own theories, but they're still holding back on her. Why?
I think it's one of two things. One, they just from a logistics standpoint, they filmed all of her scenes for Endgame before production of Captain Marvel started. So I don't think maybe there was they weren't counting on how big a hit the movie was going to be. It made $1 billion. Also, I think it was more of they really wanted the main focus of the film to be. I mean, it really is heavily focused on the original team.
Oh, absolutely.
Like Rocket and Nebula are there for sure, but at the end of the day, the adventures that we focus on the most involve Cap, Thor, and Tony.
Yeah.
And a little bit of Hulk.
It's their swan song.
It is.
Yeah.
So I think that was, they did, because you don't want to have this brand new character who has had one film that came out 3 weeks before this one to be the big focus of the film.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't feel earned. It feels cheap. It feels ham-fisted. And then also you get into the idea of, we all know that Captain Marvel is like unbelievably powerful.
Yeah.
Having her there at all times would be like having Hulk in Civil War. Whatever team she's on just wins.
Yeah.
And so
that's been my issue, I think, with her as a character. I loved Captain Marvel. I think she's a really great character, but how do you have the heavy stakes of what they're trying to do when you have a character who can do what she does?
Yeah.
I mean, she flies straight through. Again, jumping,
Mm-hmm.
going out of order. She flies straight through a ship. I mean, she did it in Captain Marvel a couple times, and she did it in this movie again. When you have that kind of power, how do you have the stakes of these other characters who don't have that level of power having to try and complete these other tasks?
Not only that, but like they're raining fire onto the planet, and then they just stop and turn all guns on her. Like,
Right.
no, it didn't work.
And does nothing.
Does nothing.
Does nothing to her.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I completely agree to that. I'd like to add that I think that they're still holding back a bit from what she potentially can be, even though we're still seeing, all that she can do in these two films. Is that I think that she realistically is going to go up against somebody like Galactus or Doctor Doom, whoever ends up being the next Thanos, in this next saga, whatever they end up calling it. I really think she's the next, Thor. Essentially, you looked at Thor and you're like, how can anybody defeat Thor when he's Thor? Like, he's a god. He can't die. You see all these things. Or even Hulk. You saw no way of Hulk being, defeated as Hulk until he was defeated as Hulk. And you're like, oh, okay, so he's knocked down a handful of pegs. So I think that time will come for Captain Marvel. But I just don't know when.
Well, same with Doctor
You don't need to do that now.
No. She just introduced. We don't need to unleash, her whole capabilities on us.
Because they didn't even do that throughout most of her movie.
Yeah.
She was very handcuffed throughout most of her movie, and it wasn't really till the end that they were like, "Oh yeah, you can do this now."
Yeah.
You don't have to do that. You give it little crumbs.
It was the same with Doctor Strange. I mean, Doctor Strange is ridiculously powerful.
Yeah.
In the comics, but you don't have him hit. I mean, he's still not the Sorcerer Supreme. You don't have him in that status in his first movie or even in his second or third appearance in Infinity War and Endgame. You let that story play out over his own movies over time. So we'll get there as far as Captain Marvel goes in her second or maybe even third movie. But
And there's no rush.
no,
They got phase 4, 5, 6, 7. There's no rush for that.
So moving on, we get Scott Lang back into the fold, and this is one of two small gripes that I had with the film.
Okay.
I loved it. This is not taking it down any pegs with me, but I was a little confused. Lang escapes the quantum realm because a rat happens to bump the dashboard.
Yeah.
So I was like, I felt like that was as much of a letdown, not quite in the level of, but finding out that Fury, his eye was scratched by a cat. Like, it's not on the same level, but it still is irritating.
See, I loved the eye scratch thing just because it's so. It's such a Nick Fury thing because he always puts on this badass thing and he's so secretive all the time.
Yeah.
And to find out that that's what happened to him, I thought it was hysterical.
I thought it humanized the character a bit.
Absolutely.
But
especially
what about
because
the rat?
especially
With any
yeah.
character, the rat makes sense to do it with Ant-Man. It's within that realm of stuff. It's not like it's Steve Rogers and it was a rat. With
It's the
Ant-Man,
comedy
aspect
aspect of the character
There's
of
also-
Ant-Man. It's so ridiculous because that's that brand of Ant-Man is the ridiculousness. You don't cast Paul Rudd to play a serious character.
They threw a giant Pez dispenser in the last one.
I get
You probably
that.
bitched about that.
But like, I'm sitting here, Ant-Man and the Wasp ends, this post credits, and I'm like, how the hell is he going to get out? The trailer pops up and he's out. I'm like, oh my god. I thought something major happened. Like he was able to like speak to somebody and they figured out. No, he just gets a rat, jumps across.
Okay,
his
Aaron, how does he
dashboard.
get out? Write it right now.
I don't know.
Here's the thing: it was gonna
Somebody's
have
in
to
the
be an
quantum realm with
accident.
him.
It was gonna have to be an accident, especially after a 5-year wait. It's gonna have to happen by accident. Something sooner or later was gonna accidentally press that button.
So who's more powerful, Captain Marvel or that rat?
I mean, the
Rat, are you
rat's
kidding
pretty
me?
important, apparently.
That rat saved the universe.
Yeah.
So is this where Ken Jeong does his?
Oh my god.
What the hell?
Not the first Community cameo that we've seen, and not the last because we had another one in this. I didn't realize though the Russo brothers actually directed some Community episodes, and they executive produced. So like that makes sense.
That's why their run with Marvel has been so impressive. They came from doing sitcoms to Endgame.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
what the hell? Go back.
Are you glad they didn't give him any lines?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
There were a lot of cameos in this movie,
Yeah.
and most of them had no lines.
well, the best part about
Which is great.
Ken Jeong is he comes cheap for these kind of movies because he already, is in the ABC family from his sitcom that didn't go.
Dr. Ken.
Yeah. But yeah, so he's probably easy to get
Well,
right.
I'm
Yeah,
sure
well,
he did
and-
as a bit of a favor too to these guys.
Oh
that,
yeah.
You know.
Well, and someone like him, I mean, I feel like just based on his personality, if someone came up to him like, "Hey, you want to play security guard in Avengers Endgame?" Hell yeah, I want to play in a security guard in Avengers Endgame.
He doesn't have any lines. Even better.
That's great. I don't have to learn anything. I just have to sit there and look shocked.
Right.
So we see Lang get back. Okay.
Why does he
move on.
follow him out into the parking lot?
I don't know.
Wouldn't you? I would be so confused. You're working this boring job as a security guard for a storage unit, and all of a sudden there's a guy just trapped in one of the cages. What? Like, I would be really confused and follow him out of the building as well.
I would say that was a theater-esque mustache too.
Oh,
That was
yeah.
like high
yeah.
school
That was
theater.
awesome.
That was bad.
Like, you're 16, you need to play a 30-year-old with a
Yeah.
mustache. There you go.
I'm pretty sure I wore that mustache in my high school production of Meet Me in St. Louis.
Believe it or not, it's actually the same mustache they could have given to Henry Cavill in
Just
Mission
let's
Impossible.
call it what it is.
It's the Cavill.
So-
Well, no, they needed to get rid of. They
Well,
needed to
they
get rid of the
could
mustache.
have given it to him in Mission Impossible, and then he could have shaved his. Anyway, I'm wrong movie. It's wrong.
So
wrong
Lang,
universe.
Lang figures out at this point that he actually was dusted, into the sense, but he doesn't see his daughter's name on the memorial.
Was
So
that
he
nice
goes
that they
home.
had that?
I thought that was cool.
Oh, I
Like
cried.
just a nice little touch that they've like with any tragic event, there's memorials that
Yeah.
need to be.
I thought it was really interesting to see.
I cried so hard in that.
Did
scene.
anyone else try and look at the names and see if they noticed anyone?
Yeah.
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 Oh,
But,
yeah.
I didn't see anything.
I'm sure
major.
that there's something to the names that were on there. Maybe people who had been, assisting in some fashion the MCU,
Right.
or I don't know, but
When I go see it again, like my only purpose for going is just going to be for that scene.
Yeah.
Just to
Oh,
look
yeah.
at the names.
I'm sure
really
there's
closely.
some. But so he catches up with his daughter, and she is aged. It's been 5 years, and then he goes after that. Well, also too, everybody had thought that I don't remember her name, but the girl from 13 Reasons Why.
Catherine Langford.
Yes, that she was going to play Cassie Lang. She was not. She was reportedly cast in this film. Never showed up.
Oh.
So they don't know if it was just a rumor, or if there's maybe she's been cast and it was a deleted scene, or she's been cast as somebody that we'll see in Phase 4.
Quick question, because it's in this scene. So he's walking down the street, and the kid rides by him on a bike, and he calls out, and he's like, "Hey, kid, what happened?" The kid looks back at him, and they hold on that shot for a good bit.
Yeah.
Was the kid supposed to be somebody?
I thought it was just the kid's reaction, because you
Okay.
see him start to go through. Granted, it wasn't a wide range of emotion,
Right.
But you see him have a realization of here's what happened. He's also pretty young, so
Yeah.
he may not have really been he'd been aware of it going on.
Because I haven't watched Runaways or Cloak and Dagger.
Oh yeah.
I don't think it was
So I
one of
wasn't.
them.
I didn't know if it was something from that or
Yeah,
what.
I didn't gather any of that.
I thought they held on his face long enough that I was kind of like, is that supposed to be somebody?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay.
So he goes, and essentially, to get to the important part, he figures out, he believes at this point in time he can use the quantum realm to fix what Thanos has done. He goes back to the Avengers compound, and they said there's only was it 2 people that we can, or no, there's 1 person, and they go to Stark. Stark has a new life. He's his kid. He's got, he's basically said, no, I'm okay with where I'm at. But the only other person that can actually do anything with this ends up being Bruce Banner, who over the course of 5 years has become Professor Hulk.
Oh, when they cut to the diner and it's just the back of, because first I was like, who are they going to go talk to? Because it just didn't click with me that it would be Ben. And then you see the back of that big green head, and I was just like, oh fuck yes.
I was so excited. I love Professor Hulk.
Yeah.
I love the idea, because he even mentions that in his dialogue, is that he's got the brains of Banner and the brawn of Hulk.
I can wear shirts now.
Yeah. He thought it was
that
just a
was-
bit gratuitous. I
Loved it. Taking selfies with the kids. Hey, Hulk out.
And where
It
he's
was
like,
such a dad
You want
thing.
a picture with me, Ant-Man? He's like, no. Like I could tell the kids. The kid said no. No, he doesn't
want it. No, he wants to. No, just take the goddamn phone.
He's like,
Yeah. I did feel like that was. I mean, it was funny, but that was a little drawn out. They made it
Yeah.
a little too long.
Yeah.
Like, you're already at a 3-hour movie. Like, you could have cut a few minutes.
That's also on par with some of the humor in Ant-Man, though. 'Cause
Yeah.
like I felt like the way, because there's a lot of humor in this movie, and I think about 99% of it hits. But I felt like the humor that each character had felt like it fit there. Because sometimes you watch, like if you watch like the CW DC shows, when they do their crossovers, when it's, you know, Arrow is a very dark show.
Yeah.
So when Arrow shows up on Flash, it's that character being written by writers who don't normally write for him.
Right.
So his dialogue or his personality doesn't seem as on par with what it is in his own show. So in a movie like this, it really did feel like they really did have all hands on deck, because the Ant-Man jokes and dialogue felt like they were out of an Ant-Man movie. The Guardian stuff felt like it was out of a Guardians movie.
Well, and I think some of that is to the effect of so many of these directors find their way into the film. So even if they're not directing in some fashion, they are either characters. So like Taika Waititi with Korg, he's in this. So like any of Korg's lines, he wrote, you know, like or he not wrote, but he directed to the sense of like, hey, this is not Korg, so they can work with those lines.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the Russo brothers, they're being so open to the realization that they've had the culmination movies.
Yeah.
But they haven't really necessarily got their hands on the origins or the details. They know that, and they're fantastic directors that they bring in the ideas of others in order for us to get the realization or the realistic portrayals of these characters.
And I know with this one, just like in Infinity War, James Gunn was a producer. So I'm sure. Also, you got to figure something this big, this scale, this intertwined, they'd be dumb not to have the other directors in
Oh, yeah.
contributing
Oh, yeah.
in some way. Especially, well, again, like Jon Favreau plays the role of Happy, so he's gonna be on set at some point, and he's still working with Disney doing stuff for The Mandalorian. Might as well have him in.
Lion King.
And Lion King.
Very
and
entrenched in Disney.
Yeah. So yeah, having everybody come in, in some fashion to consult on this just makes all the sense in the world.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay, we figure out that we have to go back in time, essentially, looking for where these stones are, and they find at one point, I think Natasha's the one who figures it out, that says that there'd be 3 stones in New York at one time.
Yeah.
And so they're able to split into 3 groups. Before that, though, they have to figure out this whole time travel thing. And it's
I
with
love
the
this
help
scene
of,
so much.
it's just, it's with the help of Tony, who actually has been trying to figure out how to perfect it.
I
he's-
kind of loop back around.
yeah, it's like, how do we figure out that we travel through time, time doesn't travel through us? That's one of the lines that he says.
Because he's the kind of guy who's always looking, even in his quiet retirement, you can tell he's always looking for the next project.
Yeah, he's I think he's been doing this for a while, even before they approach him.
Oh, yeah.
It's the impression that I got.
I actually got it differently. For me, it kind of came across as just kind of like him saying, like, I'm just to prove that this isn't possible. I'm just gonna, a son of a bitch, it's possible.
Well, I feel like just based on, like, the age of the child, I feel like it was, like, for the first 6 months to a year, he probably worked on, well, what can I do?
Right. Okay.
Like, I'm sure up on the ship, he probably was thinking of a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Did we like
While he
seeing
was
Tony
waiting.
Stark as a dad?
Oh, I loved it.
I mean,
do.
I think we've been seeing him as a dad for the last few movies, but not as his own child.
Well, you see him kind of start that kind of role in Iron Man 3. You have the kid,
Harley.
with Harley Keener, who I had to Google after the fact, apparently is in this movie.
I
I was
know-
like, who the hell is that kid?
I caught it and cried like a child. When I was like, it was for a hot second when I'm seeing the kid and I'm like, who is?
Like,
Oh god!
I didn't make that
lost it.
connection.
they're
at
showing
all.
everybody else who's sad, and I was like, oh, it's sad. As soon as I saw him, I was just like,
Oh, I bawled.
See, I didn't make the connection that was who it was. It wasn't until I went back later. I was like, oh god, it's the child. So
I wept.
but, yeah.
I was crying during that whole scene,
Yeah.
and then when I saw him, I was audibly crying. I was weeping.
oh man, just
I was
yeah.
the person who was people were telling to shut
And-
up because
and
I was
that's-
just bawling.
When that kid rode by on the bicycle for a minute, that's who I thought that was.
Okay.
I was like, is that supposed to be the kid from Iron Man 3? And
No,
then
it's the actual actor too, which all the more makes it important.
Oh,
It's been
yeah.
7-8 years since that movie came out.
yeah, no, I actually thought and I thought the scenes with Robert Downey Jr. with Tony Stark as a dad were adorable.
They were really well done.
I thought they were fantastic. And also, again, it's all about giving weight to actions. Everything he does going forward carries that weight of he's doing this for his family, but also for himself.
Yeah, well, and they didn't try and force him into, like, if you ever saw Steve Rogers as a dad, he's going to be the stereotypical dad.
Son, did you eat your vegetables? All right.
Right.
Well, make sure you get that homework done before bedtime.
Right, but when you put Tony Stark into a dad role, he can't be that typical dad. So there's the joking with the kid and the
Go to bed
the
or I'm going to sell
teasing.
all your toys.
Right.
Like,
That line in particular, that was...
where the kid starts saying shit, and she's like, "No, that's your mom's word. She coined that word, so she gets to say it."
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Just-
it was him as a dad.
Yeah.
Well, it also, again, it furthers what was established in Infinity War, that first conversation we see him having with Pepper, where he's like, I dreamed we were pregnant. And the kid's name was Morgan, right? And she's like, no, we're not. Cut to now, they have a kid. Kid's name's Morgan.
Yep.
So it's furthering that. He already was in the process of, because he was excited. He wanted to be a dad. He was looking forward to it. He got what he wanted.
So, in order for them to go back in time, Tony's got to figure this out. But also, too, they have to recruit a couple people. We need Thor, and we need Clint. We need Hawkeye. So, Rocket and Hulk, which I thought was the funniest thing, seeing Hulk in the backseat of a truck, holding onto his knees and just sitting like a child, kind of like, doop-de-doop.
And of course, all of the sparks from the truck hitting him because he's so heavy. That was pretty great.
So we go and we grab Thor and we grab Hawkeye. Hawkeye's is a little bit more straightforward. He's now become Ronin. He's got nothing left to live for in his life because his family is gone. So he's just going to go around and punish those that shouldn't have survived the snap.
It's almost like he's going back to what makes the most sense to him. He was an assassin who was trained to take out bad people. So what's he doing? He's going out and taking out all of these the Yakuza, MS-13 members, people who it's like, how come these terrible people got to survive? Well, screw it. The one thing I know how to do best is take out bad guys.
Yeah, his line where he said, he's talking about his friends and the good people that didn't survive. They got Thanos, you get me. And it's just like, it's brutal. And I love the approach because he hasn't... I mean, Hawkeye has been essentially what Aquaman was to DC before, a Momoa. I think that, like, Hawkeye was just like... Everyone's like, yeah, he shoots arrows.
Yeah.
But the realization of just how, impactful he can be outside of the realm of superpowered beings... had been lost up to this point. So I love them going back to that and giving him some of that depth.
Because they started like the first Avengers made me a Hawkeye fan. Like just that shot of him shooting the arrow behind his back without looking was like, okay, so he's useful. But we hadn't gotten a whole lot of that since then. Like in Age of Ultron, which I like more than most people, even he remarks a lot of like, we're here, the city is floating, there's robots everywhere, I have a bow and arrow, none of this makes sense.
Yeah.
He had been reduced to that kind of role, so, and he was not in Infinity War at all, so it had been a minute since we'd spent any time with Hawkeye.
Yeah.
So, getting to really see just why this character is the badass that he is, honestly, it kind of made up for his not being in Infinity War, I think.
Yeah. So Natasha goes and recruits him. They basically kind of flip the script on how how Clint recruited her to the Avengers. She then is doing the same to him, telling him like, hey, this isn't the way to do things. There's another way you can do it without killing a bunch of people, which is what he did for her. On the other side of it, though, we get a very unconventional approach in Thor, as how Banner and Rocket go to get him. And Thor has become essentially a fat, drunken slob.
He's become me.
And
He's living in a hole, eating, drinking, playing video games. I mean, this is
New
all I do.
Asgard. New Asgard.
And New Asgard, which actually I didn't realize. So I knew a couple things. That was where that was underneath the cliffs where his father died.
Yeah.
But also, too, it was where... this is where Red Skull attacks that city in Captain America: First Avenger. That's that same city.
Really?
It's the same name city. So it's like formerly called something Sweden. Or
Oh.
Norway, I don't remember what it was.
You're the one that went back and rewatched all the movies.
Yeah.
so-
That was
Yeah,
one
it's
of
like-
them that I actually went and looked up, and it was part of one of the Easter egg things that people were talking about. And I was like, that name looked familiar.
See, I actually found out that New Asgard actually is a place.
Is it?
There's actually a city called New Asgard.
Oh, that's cool.
So I don't know if that's where they shot it, but
That'd have been neat.
yeah.
But they go there and they try to get him, and he's basically gone into this this spiral after not killing Thanos. He's the only one that had the shot that he had, and he missed it. You know, he took his shot and he missed.
He's filled with guilt.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think my question is him being, and he always talks about it. It has become a running joke at this point now. He's the strongest Avenger. With that being said, do you think, because we already saw what happened to Hulk after being defeated by Thanos, do you think that this is his version of Hulk deciding that he doesn't want to come out and play?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's fair.
Just because, you know, he goes off and, I mean, he's got the beer gut, which that was my other gripe with the film. I think that his trauma-induced whatever spiral, I think it went on too long because it continued on after they go back to Asgard.
I didn't have a problem with it continuing on with him being kind of a mess. The beer gut was a bit much.
Yeah, I could have done without that after the fact. Like initially, get the joke in and then move on.
Especially again, jumping forward to the end where he goes full armor to take on Thanos. I mean, he's still fat.
He's still a big guy. Yeah,
Still kicks ass, but he's still fat. And at the end of the movie, he's still fat. And as a fat guy, I was like, look, it would have been hilarious if he was just kind of like, all right, fine, bolt of lightning, super fit Thor again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was expecting that because I'm like, here's something: is Thor's a god, and like I can see the initial joke of, you know, here's what he's become, but then move on.
Yeah.
So for me, it wasn't that I didn't like that they showed him as that. It's that I think it that way went on too long.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That was that's gripe 2 of 2, and so I'm done with my.
But again, if those are the biggest problems you're going to have with
Exactly.
the movie, I mean,
those are the worst things that happened in this film, in my opinion, and I was fine. But you also have your nice little Fortnite advertisement dropped in.
question: am I the only guy in the room that hasn't played Fortnite?
I haven't.
I have not either.
Oh, thank God.
So yeah, I don't know.
It's
but
good to
essentially,
see Valkyrie too.
Oh,
I was pleased that not only is she involved, but how heavily I think she's going to be involved going forward.
Yes.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love the character.
Because I love Tessa Thompson.
We know
Yeah,
why.
she's great.
She's fantastic in Westworld.
I
Westworld,
love Tessa Thompson.
fantastic in Westworld.
Not only that, getting to see her and Chris Hemsworth, they're going to be in the Men in Black international movie too. So those two have great on-screen chemistry, platonic or otherwise. So anytime I get to spend with those two, and we don't get a lot of them together in this movie, but the times that we do are, again, was great in Thor Ragnarok. So
So they eventually convince Thor to come because there's going to be beer on the ship, which
kind
is
of beer?
enough. You know, I can empathize. And at this point, they realize they have to go back to 3 different spots. They have to go back to New York in 2012. They have to go back to Asgard in 2013. And then in 2014, they have to go back to, what are the 2 planets? I can't find them
it's was it Asgard? Yeah.
Vormir
Vormir, yeah.
and Morag.
Morag as the other one. Okay, so and those 2 are in the same star system. So you've got that's going to be at the same time. So we've got 3 to look at. Let's look at New York first, chronological. Okay. Banner, Rogers, Lang, and Stark. They go back to essentially Avengers 1.
They're literally there.
They're in Avengers.
We get the around shot and everything.
Yeah. I loved it. I thought it was such a cool portrayal. You know, especially for me, like this was the perfect thing to happen in this film, having just gone through the marathon. Like to see these elements, I was like, yes, like this is exactly why I watched this. So I thought that, but I love the fact that it was the spin on perspective. Like it was still everything happening as it was, but you saw it from across the room as opposed to the angles and shots that you saw it in the original.
Do you like how Professor Hulk was disgusted with his
Yeah,
what
yeah.
it seemed like his Neanderthal self of just smashing.
So
So he's
great.
like, "Go do your Hulk stuff,
He
smash,
just throws
smash."
the
Punch, kick,
Yeah.
kick. I loved it too because like Iron Man's the movie that kicked off the MCU, but the first Avengers is the movie that kicked off essentially this whole Thanos Infinity War storyline.
Yeah.
And so to go back to that film where the team first got together, where the Infinity Stones first became an actual threat, was just so fitting. Mm-hmm. And again, kudos to the Russo brothers for figuring out, at one point there were 3 stones in the city at the same time. Son of a bitch. All right.
Yeah, there were.
Isn't that always the idea of a trilogy? It always goes back to where the story began.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're there, and their goal is to get their hands on the Tesseract, get their hands on the Scepter, and get their hands. What was the third one?
The Time Stone.
Yeah.
Time Stone. Yes, with So with Strange. So they're trying to do all 3 of those, and you've got Banner who goes to the Sanctum to get the Time Stone.
Was it the majestic one?
The ancient one.
The ancient one, yeah. And I loved, like we had mentioned earlier, I love this because you get a call back to her, who she always mentions, and I almost want to go back and watch Doctor Strange again now, seeing if she saw this, because she at one point in Doctor Strange said, I've seen my life, 100 times, or millions of times, but I can never get past this one moment. Did she see the one instance that Hulk came back and talked to her? I don't know, maybe there's a hint or an Easter egg somewhere in that speech that she gives with Strange.
Maybe.
Out there.
I'm really looking forward to going back and rewatching the old stuff and connecting dots. There's one I'm going to get to in a little bit. You might have the same thing.
Because she even said, he's like, I'm looking for Strange. And he's like, he's about 5 blocks down that way.
And you're about 4 or 5 years too soon.
Yeah.
So, but I love that incorporation. Okay, let's just get straight to the point. Loki, is he alive or dead? Because in this sequence, Loki is being taken back to Asgard. This is the end of Avengers 1. He's being taken back to Asgard, and the plan goes to shit. The Tesseract gets knocked onto the floor right in front of him. He picks it up and he phases out.
I think I think that is gonna be the first step in, because we're getting the Disney Plus service this year. Loki is getting his own series with Tom Hiddleston coming back. They said it's going to be a little Quantum Leap-ish, him journeying through time and things like that. I think this is our first step at getting that, because people have said, how are we getting a Loki series if he died in Infinity War?
Yeah.
This is how we're going to get
because
it.
Because they purposely don't mention it throughout the entire movie.
Which is really funny, because
his moment.
He's the one person who went away that everyone's been speculating, will he be back? And mostly it's the teenage girls who want him to come back.
And my mom.
Well.
And me. Look, let's be honest.
Everyone else, they're like, okay, well, this person's gone in the snap, so they're probably going to be coming back. A couple people talked about Gamora because of the fact that her death was not directly tied to the snap.
Yeah.
Can I tell you how happy I am that we didn't just break the Soul Stone and then she came out?
I was so afraid they were going to do that.
Because everybody kept talking about at the end of Infinity War, you see young Gamora and the sky around them is orange. So they're in the Soul Stone. I'm so happy that didn't happen.
Because in the comics, the Soul Stone creates each stone's like a pocket dimension.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there was some backing to that theory, but I'm glad they didn't, because it just would have been it would have opened up way too many other avenues. So
and because of understanding the time events, Vision now never exists.
To that extent, no.
Because he never had the Soul Stone.
But the people...
Well, no. He had the Soul Stone because that was in the Scepter. The Space Stone is what's in the Tesseract.
No, it's not Soul Stone.
The Mind Stone.
Mind Stone.
The Mind Stone, yeah. He had the Mind Stone was in the Scepter. They got the Scepter.
Yeah, and so that was... Yeah. So, but in that...
So does he ever exist?
He never existed because they never created him.
But this goes back to the whole time travel thing, because apparently Rogers then goes back and puts all of the stones back, so the event should technically take place the way that they are supposed to.
Right.
But
except that then they killed 24...
This is like John Connor Terminator.
Yeah, time travel in movies is awful.
And right now, the Doctor Who fans are screaming at us, look, guys, it's not that hard, okay?
But it is, though.
It is, but it's not. Whenever time travel's involved, you just kind of accept things as they are.
So you've got Rogers goes after the Mind Stone. because he's seeing that you got which is one of the biggest moments for most people. Well, many people thought this was their favorite moment. With Rogers going into the elevator, as we mentioned earlier, and instead of fighting them this time in the elevator, he skips because he knows everything of what's going on, and he says, "Hail Hydra." Which to me, that's a Steve Rogers Captain America comic issue number 1, which I went out and bought that issue just because.
Came out, what, 2 years ago?
Yeah, I had to have the original issue of Captain America saying "Hail Hydra" because everybody said like, "Oh, you won't believe the final cell in this issue," and it was amazing. So that was the callback there, and that was nothing else essentially.
It was fine. It was a nice
very
Easter
clever.
egg.
Very clever.
Very clever.
And
Also,
and of course, Steve Rogers walks out of the elevator and is very pleased with himself.
Yeah.
But then he walks right into himself.
Yeah. I was going to say, as a guy who Winter Soldier is his favorite MCU film, and that action sequence in the elevator is among the top action sequences in films.
I loved it.
Just having that callback alone, I was like, are we going to get it again? Are we? Oh, we didn't, but I like what you did.
Yes. Yes. So he goes and he...
oh, you got to be shitting me.
He cussed a lot in this movie.
He did, and that's what made me laugh so hard, was because in Ultron, the first thing you hear Iron Man say is, shit! Language! And so, just to see where he great arcs, but yeah, he drops, he had a foul mouth in this movie.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. He comes out and he actually ends up fighting himself, which I thought that was interesting. I knew it had to happen somewhere with the time travel for someone to run into themselves, and I guess it was probably the best one for it to happen to because there have been so many Captain Americas that I think that might have been the tip of the cap to that element. And to me, it gives me my favorite line of the movie. That is America.
That is America.
So
that is America. Just want to say, Captain America, I think your ass looks great in that suit. That is America's ass.
Yeah.
That is America's ass.
So I mean, if anything, that sequence gave us that line.
Well, not only that, but with the whole running. How do you write off the whole running into your future or past self thing? Because at that time they were dealing with a Loki who had just escaped.
Yeah.
It was easy for them. Once he knocked him out, they could easily write that off as, oh, that was just Loki.
Yeah.
It's an easy write-off, and that we don't have to worry about the whole, well, wouldn't Cap then remember fighting? It was Loki.
It was Loki. Yeah. And he even thought it was Loki.
He did,
He even makes that, Loki's on, floor 25.
Oh, and the reason that works is because, so we all know the scene in Thor Dark World where Loki turns into Captain America to tease Thor. Early in the scene before this one, we see what happens after they apprehend Loki in the first Avengers. And what does he do? He turns into Captain America in front of everybody and makes fun of Captain America to his face.
Yeah.
So we've already had that seed planted of he can turn into Captain America and can use that to screw with people. So returns and payoffs, everybody.
Yeah. So you two of the eventually once Banner tells the Ancient One that that the stone was given from Strange to Thanos, she realizes that he must have done it for a reason. He wouldn't have done that for any other reason. So then she willingly hands over the stone. Yeah. They don't get the Tesseract, so they get 2 of the 3, and then they return. Mm-hmm. Some of them. 2 of them return. The other 2 go to 1970, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. The other one, well, actually, we'll talk about that. Let's talk about that one first before we move on.
Because I think they go straight. I think they go straight to that.
They go there, and then that'll get us back to the original. So,
and the first thing we get when we get to the 1970s is probably my favorite Stan Lee cameo of all time.
It's pretty good. It's a top few for me.
Which is a very de-aged Stan Lee driving in a car, screaming, "Make love, not war!"
Oh yeah, I thought it was if this is our last one for him, I think it's a good one to go out on.
Yeah. That was one of the moments that our theater clapped and applauded really loudly, and that one's 100% justified. I completely understand
theater lost
that
their minds, myself included.
And I think it's interesting because it is this idea of everybody trying to. They don't want to fight. They're actually trying to figure a way to save everyone without actually fighting or killing anyone. The Avengers are. So I think it's kind of interesting where that goes in the play out of the film. Mm-hmm. So we in this 1970s, essentially you're splitting them up. One's going to try to get the Tesseract. And then the other is Tony's trying to go get the Tesseract, and Rogers is going to get the
Pym
particles.
Because I don't think we didn't touch on the fact that when they start the time travel aspect of things, there is only enough of the Pym particles, which are the time travel element that they use in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
It lets them travel through the quantum realm.
Yeah, there's only enough for each of the Avengers to have one round trip, so they're able to get to their designated time to get their Infinity Stone, and they're able to get back to the present. So, of course, with the failure to get the Tesseract, they have to figure out what the new plan is. So we get a cool moment of Tony Stark asking Steve Rogers, "Do you trust me?" Steve Rogers says yes, and we kind of reestablish their connection and the trust between them as characters before they go to 1970.
Yeah. Well, I think it was important with Civil War that we needed that. We needed that moment because also, even earlier in this film, they're at each other's throats a bit. So it establishes that friendship that they once had.
And which, moving on to that next scene in 1970, now knowing what we know now, that is the ending of the movie right there. That whole 70s scene where they were on that military base, foreshadowing that is the end of the movie right there.
Do you think he is already deciding in that moment what he's going to do later on? Or
Stark?
No, Captain America.
I think him seeing her there, I think that plants the scene inside of his head.
Yeah, I definitely think when he sees her standing in that office is when he realizes he has an opportunity to...
And him seeing his picture on her desk.
Yeah.
That she didn't forget about him, because we know they interact in Civil War. The beginning of Civil War, she's dying, or she's old. He goes and visits her.
But that's in Winter Soldier. Her funeral's in Civil War.
That's right.
Did they have sex?
Probably.
Yeah.
Which time?
Yes.
Winter Soldier, old, not with a dead body. What's wrong with you, man?
I thought you meant when he goes back.
When she's
in the
old.
film. No. Well, here's the question: is okay? If did she know that timeline was going to exist? Did she know at that point that he came back and visited her, or is that a different timeline, different universe, doesn't exist yet?
I think if we go off of the Ancient One's theory that any kind of adjustment creates that divergent timeline, I think it's a different timeline scenario.
Yeah.
Was it a little too easy for them to get in and out like they did?
Yeah. But I mean, also at the same point, it was the 70s. The superheroes weren't really a thing.
Well, there's no SHIELD. This is, because
SHIELD. This is still the OSS. Yeah, the early beginnings of SHIELD.
Because this is Peggy Carter has established the OSS. Yeah. So this is not the SHIELD the way that we know it today. And even you see Nick Fury in when going back to Captain America, when you see Nick Fury in the 90s, he's like level 3, I think, is his access level. So it's not Nick Fury's SHIELD with all of the security measures anymore.
From the beginning of Ant-Man, we know that SHIELD isn't really SHIELD until the late 80s,
right?
In that opening scene from Ant-Man. So their technology, and also from the scene we get here with super de-aged Michael Douglas, whoa. I thought the de-aging they did on him in Ant-Man was impressive. For this, I was like, did you literally go back in time and just pluck young Michael Douglas?
But just think what they can do with that technology now.
Yeah.
They could go back and do any type of move they wanted to. They could go back and do a prequel to The Thing, the way Kurt Russell looked like in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. That technology opens the door for... it's kind of a, suspend your disbelief. It's not going to be perfect. No.
I think the enjoyment of it for me is at least it looks like a character, and it's not someone who kind of looks like him, and you're like, then you have the argument of, well, could you find a better actor to look like young so-and-so?
But they did the same thing to Nick Cage and Captain Marvel, and I guess it depends on how long are they on screen, because he wasn't on screen that long, and it looked fine. But
also, Sam Jackson doesn't age.
I was going to say, there's a handful of people like Paul Rudd. You could do Paul Rudd from Clueless, and from now,
he
it's
looks the same.
Well, even Kurt Russell in Guardians 2, they didn't have to do much.
No.
Yeah. He when you're married to Goldie Hawn, he has aged pretty well. So,
so can I ask you a question? So Tony Stark gets the Tesseract, and he bumps into his dad.
Yep.
Do you think it's at that point that he decides that if he has to make a sacrifice, he does?
No, I think he always would have made that sacrifice. I think when he meets his dad and he gets that hug, that's when I knew he was going to sacrifice himself.
Yeah.
Because his character arc is complete.
What
he
is
had
that
nothing left
line
to
that they
gain.
had that it was like his dad said something to the effect of, I've always was putting my business before the betterment of people or people in general.
Yeah.
Well, because then he gives him the line, "I'd do anything to protect that kid." I don't think in that moment he knew that he was gonna, probably have to, do what he does. But I think at that point he started to come to the realization that he might have to, or that he was going to have, there was, especially when you get to that scene later on during the big fight, where he gets that one finger.
The one, you had one chance. Like, this is the one out of the 14 million or whatever the number was. I don't know. But for me, that was my realization that, like, Tony's not going to make it out of this. Either he's going to sacrifice himself for somebody in order to do something, or he's going to be the one that makes the snap. Yeah. I knew that he wasn't going to make it out because, like, as we were talking, like, we're all watching Game of Thrones here in a couple hours, and we know there's certain characters that we know, like, there's nothing left for them to do. Tony had nothing left to do. I mean, you could add more, but as far as where he began, he would always talk about he never got to say goodbye to his dad. He never got to, I think he said he never hugged his father. So when he got that hug, for me, I was like, oh yeah, he's done. Like it was, and it was fine for me to see that because, like, he needed some resolution, and that was a major piece of resolution in his history.
Well, also, in Civil War, he says the line, he never got to say goodbye to his dad.
Yeah,
I never got to say goodbye. So that was what that was for him. Is he essentially gets his closure that he never really gets at the end of Civil War.
Yeah. So we're being told to move on, nerds. Get back to the movie.
Can I just have to ask
Kim.
who? From Kim?
From
okay.
Kim.
Okay, yeah.
Seems
Thanks,
like it would be a
Kim.
Jordan
She's
thing.
supposed to.
Yeah, that was my question. I was like, is it Jordan or Kim?
So, okay, yes, we need to, because we've got, about
we got about an hour left.
An hour left. We're going to take some calls. We've got a lot to do here soon.
So let's do this real quick. Let's take another quick break and breathe a second, and then we come back. Let's get back into this thing.
Sounds good.
Move over, Jimmy Kimmel. Step aside, Conan O'Brien. Back off, Stephen Colbert. It's my turn. I'm Mike Shea, and every Tuesday on my show, Mike Talks Funny, I sit down and talk with comedians, actors, film fans, podcasters, anybody willing to get down, get deep, and get dirty.
I don't remember the first time I had sex. That was horrible. I didn't even finish the first time I had sex.
I've tasted what most comics want, and now I have to go back and eat the leftovers.
You're so brave for wearing that shade of lipstick on stage. Oh my God.
Think of Last Comic Standing, and Mystery Science Theater 3000 had a baby, and that's the show.
My online doppelganger is also a larger black man. He is Adrian Miller. All the top results are he's a professor.
Interviews with great people, not to mention all kinds of awesome new music every show.
Hey, this is Don Smith.
This is Scotty Mays.
Hey, this is Kevin Goatee with Comics Watching Comics.
Brought to you by Eventide Entertainment. Hello there. My name is Wallace J. Crumplebottom, and when it's early in the morning, there's nothing that gets me ready for a long day of bean counting quite like a good breakfast. And there's no better breakfast than a brand new episode of The Breakfast Lads. Take it from me, I'm British, so I must know what I'm talking about. Tune in every Wednesday at 8 a.m. for a brand new episode of The Breakfast Lads. Brought to you by Eventide Entertainment. Talking about movies is what Aaron Lopez does best.
We are talking about The Greatest Showman, Thor Ragnarok, Love Simon, Hereditary,
with an army of special guests.
Jordan Lopez, Aaron Brewer, Jack Elliott, my good friend Carly.
Special moments you don't want to miss.
The very first ever Drunk Drive-In. We are more looking at the Oscar nominations.
So grab some snacks and a cold drink.
Let's all go to the lobby, refill your drinks.
Every Thursday.
Eventide Entertainment presents The Drive-In.
We are back for the final leg of this this mega crossover review. Woo! And we got an hour, so we've got to get to it. We got some big questions to answer, and we got a decent amount of plot to get through.
Literally, the website will kick us off the feed if we go over an hour at this point.
So let's get to it. I think the big element that we need to look at next is Asgard.
Yeah.
You've got Thor and Rocket, who go to Asgard. And this is essentially at the same time as Dark World, when they take Natalie Portman back after she has sucked in the ether. So you're continuing to see this crisis happening with Thor, and he's like, I can do this, I can't do this, I can't confront her because I'm not the hero that I'm supposed to be, which is a big issue. I think that a lot of the characters face throughout these 22 movies is at some point or another, am I worthy, and for him, literally worthy, to hold the mantle of hero. And Rocket's saying, it doesn't matter if you are or not. We're all that's left. We got to do this. And so we see Rocket continue to have this leadership role. But you have the 10 and a half, maybe 15 seconds of Natalie Portman in this film for her to get a credit.
Not only that, but like, was some of that new footage?
I think I read somewhere that they used like unused footage from Dark World, but she did record like one or two new lines of dialogue.
Okay.
So she was not there filming anything, but she did record new dialogue for the character.
Because she was at the premiere, and everybody, when they saw her on the carpet, were like, yo.
Yeah, is she in the movie?
Which, I mean, yeah, technically. She's in the credits, like the big credits, so.
Yeah. So she has the ether at this point, and Rocket is gonna... Doesn't he? Well, I can't remember the line. Basically, he's telling Thor to distract her so he can poke her with the stick and suck the ether out of her.
Something like that. Yeah.
It is the most Rocket kind of approach of screw it, we'll do it live.
Right? Yeah.
He's like, yeah, we'll just go ahead and we'll do this this way.
Or maybe we'll get the battery first and just improvise.
Yeah, we're just like, all right. And that's just Rocket's approach. So they go through and they eventually do get this from her, no thanks to Thor, who, when he sees his mother, has this moment where he never got to say bye.
Yeah.
At this point, I was a little worried because we had just seen Robert Downey Jr. say goodbye to his father, and we get that moment... with Thor and with what's her name?
Renee Russo.
Renee Russo.
Frigga.
Oh. And I was a little concerned because at this point, I really thought we were going to lose the Trinity, the original trio.
Oh, altogether.
I thought we'd lose all three because for me that makes sense. That's more of a passing on of the torch. Of you like, here's these three moving on, and then we've got like Black Panther, Spider-Man, and Captain Marvel to take those next three forward. So I was concerned, but luckily he's still around. But I thought there was a really cool line where she talks. He wants more time with her as Rocket is running away from all of the baddies. And she says, this time was more than we were supposed to get. Like, this in itself was a present. Like, this was wonderful. And it's funny because she knows immediately that he's not her Thor. Yeah. She's like, I was raised by witches, honey. I know, that you're not my Thor. And she's like, what's wrong? And he's, it's like a therapy session essentially for him.
I love, and just throughout the Thor movies, I love Renee Russo as Frigga. She's so good.
Yeah, it was very well done. I'm surprised to some extent that we didn't get a little bit of Anthony Hopkins in this. Not that we needed a lot, but even just like him walking through the halls or something to show. Yeah. But I mean, nothing major lost from his absence.
It's good. It's good that because their recovery of the ether kind of goes off fairly without a hitch. They're able to. We get a nice scene, but I think it would be kind of jumping the shark if every recovery operation had something go foobar. Mm-hmm. One, maybe two is enough, but if you have all of them go bad, it just gets to be too much.
Well, and then the reality of it is that they were going to these places specifically because they knew it would be an easy get.
Yeah.
So for, like you said, for multiple ones to go off, then it would have been like, well, in hindsight, probably should have gone at a different time.
Right.
When they actually thought this out pretty carefully. Then you have, also too, it's important for, before he leaves, Thor brings Mjolnir with him.
So Mjolnir
is back, which I'm glad, but then I'm also kind of disappointed because it lessens what Hela does in Ragnarok if they just go back in time and get Mjolnir back. But
at the end of the movie, Steve Rogers puts it back.
Because he takes
all the
Infinity Stones in. That was my first question too. Was like, what happened to Mjolnir?
Is he going to have it in the other move? Like, does that remove it from the timeline? But it's one of the things that Rogers puts back.
Yeah.
Okay. I missed that.
That's why he has it.
Because he takes it with him, but he doesn't have it when you see him show up later
with the shield.
Yeah.
So,
Barton and Romanoff then go to Vormir. This is where the Soul Stone would be taken. And this is probably one of the heavier scenes of the film. We know what happens. Man. 2 souls walk in, 1 walks out. That was kind of the big element of the Red Skull and just this whole idea of Gamora not coming back from the Soul Stone. So we knew what was going to happen.
This was something I honestly, up until the point where Red Skull drops the bomb again, I had completely forgotten.
Yeah.
Like, it never crossed my mind, well, how are they going to get the Soul Stone? And then once he drops the line again, I'm just like, man!
And good job to Ross Marquand for doing a Hugo Weaver.
I don't know if you've ever seen... There's a video online of him doing just different impressions.
He's great.
And, like, seeing him on The Walking Dead, you would never know that he has the ability to do that.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Like... It's uncanny. Like, it's kind of unsettling how well he can do impressions.
He gets the cadence of Hugo Weaving's Red Skull flawlessly. When Infinity War came out, I had to, I'm burping into the microphone like a professional, had to Google it to make sure it wasn't actually Hugo Weaving.
I thought it was.
I thought so too. And yeah, so, but still, like, just getting Red Skull back in general makes me so happy. But this scene in Endgame, not fair.
Yeah.
No.
There was no way I was coming out of this scene happy.
No.
Well, when you're essentially down to 2, and you have to pick between, Natasha and Clint, and it's for me. I think I personally was happy with who survived. Mm-hmm. When you take into when she said she can't have any more red in her ledger, that line of like, I can't go on knowing that another person died because of me.
Right.
That's for me made that okay for her to be the one that sacrificed herself.
Plus, that negates all that stuff from the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, why do we care so much about his family being gone if he's already dead?
Yeah. And that's definitely the thing is, he has a family, he has people to continue living for, but I personally I enjoy her character immensely. Like, I'm not always the biggest fan of Scarlett Johansson, but I've loved what she's done with the Black Widow character.
But they made you think there for a minute. Yeah. They kept going back and forth.
That whole back and forth was too stressful.
I was in the theater,
stressful,
fingers in my hair, like at that. I got to the point where I was like, "One of you die, one of you die, please!" Like,
well, and then they
jumps off.
Yeah,
I thought,
and then
like,
the whole
that was it for me.
Well, yeah, and they did the slow-mo fake out of he's running past. Okay, it's Clint. Clint's gone, and then she leaps off that fucking cliff. Sorry, I don't know if that's allowed.
Go nuts! But fuck it.
But I was just like, oh, damn.
Yep, and it was for that in that one moment too. Like, I thought we might have lost them both because it wasn't completely clear that he was able to pull himself up, because it was like the save us both, save myself kind of a thing because of the weight. And she lets go of him, thus like really making the choice simple on him. And then he wakes up, in the water, very much like Thanos did in Infinity War, with Soul Stone in his hand. My question for that too is another question that someone brought up before, on like some of the review things I was looking at, is the Soul Stone different from the others? Because essentially touching any of the stones is supposed to be detrimental.
Well, we see them touch the Time Stone. Everybody touches the Time Stone.
No, they don't though. If you go back and look, the only ones that interact with the Time Stone are the sorcerers.
Well, and Hulk.
Yeah,
does Hulk touch it though?
Yeah, she puts it into his hand.
Yeah.
Because I kept saying, like, the way they held it is it's like
but
they're
if you go back
holding
to
it
Guardians 1 when they grab the...
Yeah, well, they touch it. And maybe it's just the Power Stone. Maybe the Power Stone's just simply too powerful.
I think the Power Stone's like that, but also, the Soul Stone is different in so many different ways.
That's true.
Just the way that you get it. None of the other ones require you to go through some kind of trial to obtain them. You just have to find them.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question that may be just trivial? So, like, and I was thinking this back in the original Infinity War, and then again, and they always show that scene of like the clouds opening up and like the light and this was supposed to be the soul go. Where's that go? Is that to a heaven, or is that just is she going to be trapped in some type of dimension that is where those souls go?
This is where I think that, because we know they're casting the Eternals right now.
Yeah,
I'm wondering if that, because they've talked about how Marvel is going to start going like really leaning into the cosmic and the otherworldly stuff with,
they've covered everything on Earth.
Yeah, so you got, and you're still going to have, like Black Panther 2, Spider-Man, all that, but Captain Marvel, Guardians 3, Doctor Strange, we're getting into the Eternals now. Mm-hmm. We probably at some point going to get into some Fantastic Four. So going into this cosmic stuff, is that how we get, also we got Adam Warlock coming in Guardians 3, so
I think it might be a nod to that. It also could be perhaps the idea of them, because we don't know where the Soul Stone comes from. Yeah. We just know that when they wake up, it's in their hand. Mm-hmm. So perhaps it is the soul going up into the Soul Stone, wherever that might be, and then they wake. I don't know. Like, it's a trade-off. Yeah. I mean, it's a good question. I don't know if we have an answer to it, though.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Mike, I'm okay with your answer. That satisfies.
All right. All right, so the other aspect of it is, so we see, Romanoff sacrifice herself, but we also have to go to, what was it again? Morag. There we go. Yeah. Morag and Nebula and Rhodes are there to basically ambush Peter Quill, and I loved the fact that we get to hear him singing that original "Come and Get Your Love."
We get to watch them watch the credits to Guardians 1.
Yep. Yeah. And that he's just singing away, and they're like, "This is the guy." Yep. And that's the same essential reaction you get when later Gamora says to Nebula, like, "This is the guy that I'm supposed to be in love with."
It's imagery.
Yeah. Yep. It comes down to like, he's a superhero, believe it or not. And so they go, and what's interesting though is because of the connection, and I thought this was kind of a weird plot point. I didn't dislike it. It was just kind of interesting how they incorporated it, that both Nebulas were running on the same network, essentially.
I thought that was brilliant.
I would never have thought about it because of them being, the machinery. It's the same machinery, the same concepts. It's like the two people walking off the same Wi-Fi or working off the same Wi-Fi. You've got the Wi-Fi is going to run a little slower. There's going to be issues. Two people running off of the same machinery, they're both going to be a little wonky. And both of them had issues, which... Yeah. Oh man! And then
this is brutal. I felt it was a great point just because it's not something that anyone thought of. None of the other Avengers thought, well, she has cybernetic implants, and we're going to a time that another version of herself exists.
Yeah,
like even the smartest people in that room, like Tony Stark didn't think of it, Bruce Banner didn't think of it.
No.
The smartest people in the world didn't think of that connection.
Yeah.
Well, and as a result, Thanos actually gets an insight into what they're trying to do, and then he makes the realization that they're trying to undo what he's already done.
We're talking 2014 Thanos.
Yes, so it's shortly
they're trying
before...
to undo what that version of Thanos is trying to do.
Yeah.
And he makes that realization very quickly. Once he realizes that, they're going out and grabbing stones, then it's they're not trying to do something, they're trying to undo something.
Yeah.
And it's when he's sitting there in his like underground castle, Nebula comes up to him with that piece after they've captured Nebula, the good Nebula. That's where we start to make the realization of like he's just basically gonna go and get all the stones because they're doing all the work for him.
Because he knows now because they replay all of her memory banks at that point. He knows he succeeds.
Yes.
And so he knows at this point he just has to wait for them to... He basically has to wait for their plan to work.
Yeah.
And then he just has to just be there when it happens.
And as a result of Nebula being captured, the good Nebula, the bad Nebula, the 2014 version, she actually takes the place of the good Nebula as they return back to the present timeline. So everybody goes back. She takes the timepiece off of her counterpart,
Good Nebula,
off Good Nebula, and they return. After they return, then essentially you've got the mole playing. Mm-hmm. they put all the pieces together, and Hulk ends up being the one who says, "You saw what it did to Thanos. I'm the only one who could take a hit like that."
Because he measured the radiation, they know that it's mostly gamma, and Hulk is like 99% gamma radiation. So, and this is kind of the point where the film just starts going.
Yeah, this is that last hour that they said don't take a potty break,
and it literally starts with a snap.
Yeah,
it starts with a snap, and it doesn't stop.
Banner uses the Infinity Stones to restore everyone, and the interesting part is that you see this, to me, my heart dropped here more than anywhere else in the entire film, because you see the birds around, like Lang goes out and he's like, "I think we did it." And as he's saying that, you just see these missiles, it's not even just like one, it's like thousands of explosives that turn Avengers their compound into a pile of rubble.
Well, right before that, you know that it's worked, because what happens is Hawkeye's phone starts ringing, and it's his wife. And that's how you know it worked. Shit's about to get real.
Yeah. All the while that's happening, evil Nebula brings Thanos' warship through the time jump.
Yep.
She gives him the one vial of PIM particles, and all of a sudden the warship's here. This giant warship.
And the warship is, then that what is in turn that destroys the compound.
Just,
at this point, I thought they had killed them all.
Yeah.
Because we know that because of Clint's wife calling him that everybody else is alive again, that I thought that this was them flipping it, like that one theory that said the original, plus a couple of the others are going to have to sacrifice themselves. I thought this was Thanos sacrificing them, getting it back, and then the others would defeat him. I for a hot second there, I was like, we just lost 5 or 6 characters.
I definitely didn't expect. And I was a little disappointed that all of them made it out of that. I expected at least one person to not make it through.
Like Rhodey should have died. Like Rhodey or somebody that like.
Well, I thought it was going to be Ant-Man. He's staring out that window with zero protection while those missiles are coming right at him. Like. I don't know.
There's two scenes in the movie that I think are just a little too ex machina.
Yeah.
A la when Vanessa falls in Deadpool in the glass tube and is somehow totally fine. It's a little bit like that, where it's just like
worked out a little too nice.
All right, fine.
That's a little convenient.
I'll let it go because I know what's coming. But okay, yeah.
So they go in, and there's a couple of references. There's Marvel's Secret War number 4, where Hulk is basically lifting a mountain on the cover, and in the comic he does that. There's a reference to that as Hulk is lifting up essentially the entire compound or the rubble of it in order to protect Rocket and Rhodey. And at that point, water starts coming in, and Ant-Man's alive. He goes and he starts helping them out. So you got they're alive. You've got Hawkeye's alive, and he's going after the gauntlet because he knows that it's underground still.
I think he lands like right next to it.
He lands next to it and finds it, and then Thanos' goons start chasing him.
The creatures from Wakanda.
Yeah,
I don't remember what they were called.
The not Jatari.
Yeah. And then you have Captain America and Tony, who are, I don't remember exactly what's going on with them. Everybody survives though.
Well, Captain America, Tony, and Thor are all kind of in one place, and they look out and they see Thanos, because Thanos sends in Nebula and says, "Go find me the stones." And they kind of get up and look out and see Thanos just sitting on a rock, and that's when they first get the moment of like, well, we got to go do this.
Yeah. And this was the Trinity. This is that first 3. Yeah. Those first 3 coming in and fighting Thanos, which I'm a little disappointed we didn't see Thanos' sword, his like dual sword, until this film.
Yeah.
Because of how awesome his sequences were with it. I mean, essentially, it was his Mjolnir. Like what he was able to do with that was just fantastic.
We get just an absolute knockdown, drag out fight at this point. We get Fat Thor in his fat armor, and going just full ham on each other. Shield throwing, laser shooting, just just the
But he's whipping their ass.
He's just
they're getting
no
a couple
mercy.
licks in, but it's no more than what they were able to do on Titan with like all this for a drop of blood.
And
like they weren't getting much out of him.
And we get a callback to Infinity War. Thanos, pins Thor against a rock, and he's trying to push Stormbreaker into his chest.
Mm-hmm.
And then something goes down.
Mjolnir.
Something fantastic.
Yeah.
Something that got the theater standing on their feet cheering.
This was the clap moment for us.
Was it Infinity War where that reference? I thought it was Ultron. I think it's Age of Ultron is where they're all
sitting around
Mjolnir's
having
sitting on the
drinks.
table.
No. He's talking about when Stormbreaker's going
into his chest. Yeah,
I jumped.
Yeah. I get where I get what you're going for though. It's a double callback.
Yes.
It's because Mjolnir flies across the field to save the day,
and Captain America is the one wielding Mjolnir.
Oh.
And then Thor
so good.
He's worthy.
He was like, didn't he say like, I knew it?
Yeah.
Because of course in Avengers Age of Ultron they're all sitting
Almost
around. Everyone tries to move it, and there's that moment of fear in Thor's eyes when Captain America it nudges just a little bit for Captain America,
Which
and so we
I think
finally
is
get
interesting
that.
because you have Vision who also wields Mjolnir, that just picks it up and says like, "Come on, let's go," and everyone's like, "Oh, what?" And then there's that whole discussion at the end where they're like, "But it's a machine, it's not a person, so you can't actually do that."
Right.
Yeah, I'm like, that's not right.
But Cap lays a smackdown on
His
Thanos.
use of the shield and Mjolnir together was better than any team up I've seen.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Well, because kind of like how in Ragnarok, for the first 20 minutes, Mjolnir's the star of the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, Mjolnir's the star of the first 20 minutes of Ragnarok, and so in this moment, it is almost like another character has joined the fight, and is fighting alongside. And yeah, Cap just owns Thanos for a good 2 minutes.
So as they're doing that, Thanos, he overpowers them.
Breaks the shield in half.
Yes, the shield is now in half,
Yeah.
which is a callback to what Tony saw in his vision in Iron Man 3.
This is where you see a lot of start dot connecting, because at this point, Thor is laying almost dead on a rock, just like his vision in Ultron. The shield is smashed, just like in Ultron. The chaos and destruction around is just like his vision. It's that level of detail to things from films past that the Russos weren't even involved in at this point.
Yeah. They just went and looked through the files and said, "Let's pick it all out."
Yeah.
So he mentions that he is, and correct me if I'm right or if I'm wrong here. Does he mention now that it's personal, or is that in a little bit?
No, I think it's at this point.
Yeah, he says that like
he says,
it's
I'm
never
going to
been
enjoy
personal.
this.
Yeah, he's like, I'm going to enjoy what I'm going to do, and he brings down his army to essentially finish the job.
Oh man!
As that is happening, you've got one more thing before pretty much the best part of the film, and that's Gamora is being convinced by the 2000 or the present day Nebula.
Good Nebula.
That hey, you know what he's going to do. We both know that you want to stop him. This is your chance. So she gets her to turn, and at this point, as Thanos says that he's going to do this, you've got Captain America who's really the only one left standing, and I think I personally felt at this point this is how he's going to die. It's his last stand.
Because she was looking rough.
Yeah, I mean, even he straps what's left of his shield onto him, and he's getting ready to fight Thanos, and then you hear some kind of fuzzy radio workings, and you hear Sam say on your left, Cap.
On your left.
And, that was awesome. Call back there.
Because when you first see the radio static, you think it's the guys underground or something like that calling for help, and then the shiny sparkles spiraling.
The portals start opening.
Yeah. And as the portals start, the first ones that walk out are from Wakanda.
Yeah.
You've got, who was the third one with him?
Shuri.
Okoye.
Okoye.
Shuri and Okoye in Black Panther.
Yeah.
They come out, and then you have the all the sorcerers come out, and you see the Guardians and Spider-Man coming back, and everybody.
Once Spider-Man, we'll see the Asgardians come out with Valkyrie.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we see Star-Lord, Drax, Mantis, and you can feel the room waiting to clap.
Yep.
Because as soon as Parker lands, just
thrilled. And at this point, Ant-Man becomes Giant Man, He breaks through, and so you've got you've got him. You essentially have everybody who is now together, and it is the first time we've seen the entire MCU together, more or less, with a couple small heroes missing. Everybody is there, and it is basically Thanos against everyone. Everything is there.
And what do we hear? We
hear for the first time, Avengers Assemble.
And
that was amazing.
Yeah.
They've been teasing it for so long, and they've teased, okay, well, the Avengers, and like, hey, we need to assemble, but they've never said them together.
And it was a good pause. He paused there.
It was what the audience wanted.
And then just the whisper of it.
And you could kind of see
standing ovation.
You could kind of see Thanos just getting a little bit hesitant.
He had his oh shit moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
knew it was not going to be as easy. He still had his cockiness.
Yeah. This was the Hobbit Battle of the Five Armies. This was Lord of the Rings: Return of the King.
This was the Battle of Winterfell.
I literally turned to my friend in the theater and I said, all right, Battle of Winterfell.
This is it.
Bar's been set. Let's see what you got.
Because, this is the culmination of 21 and a half films.
Yeah.
This is where we are at with everything that has been created up to this point in order to defeat Thanos. And they tried it, not to having everybody together. They tried it, half and half, or a third in Infinity War. And now this time they have full force everybody against Thanos. And including Rescue. For the first time seeing the Emperor's Rescue. That was phenomenal.
Because they teased it a bit in Iron Man 3. They teased a lot in Iron Man 3 that didn't pay off. But yeah, Rescue shows up and all the happy.
Yeah.
All the happy. And that there's not much you can say about the next 45 minutes of the film other than just they fight.
Well, it's essentially they need to get rid of the stones at this point.
Yeah.
So, but of course, Nebula at this point has destroyed the entire compound. Has been destroyed. Yeah. So the typical way that they would use the Pym particles and go back in time and get rid of them is now gone. So of course, then we say, well, there's one quantum realm portal left, and it's the van.
Anybody seen a big brown ugly van? Yeah, but you're not gonna like where it's at.
On the opposite end.
Oh man!
And then I like how they did that whole sequence of them getting the Infinity Gauntlet to where it needed to be. It was kind of remind me of Sandlot. That whole scene where they're just running, they're just, and the next person picks it up, the next person picks it up.
And there's some great callbacks, like Black Panther says, "Clint, give it to me," and that's called back to Civil War. Hey, my name's Clint. I don't care.
Yeah.
Peter Parker, who has to introduce himself to everybody he sees. Hi, how's it going? My name's Peter. Hi, how's it going? My name's Peter.
What's it say? You got a horse that flies?
Yeah,
that's so cool. And then we get a moment where every woman in the theater lost their
of course now we're not Captain Marvel finally decides she's going to join the fight,
because Scarlet Witch is getting hers in with Thanos. She shows up and is like, you took away everything,
which was
from
so
me.
Great.
She was about to put him down, and then Thanos orders all of his ships to uses rain fire, and just death and destruction rains from above. And then it stops and points up and just starts shooting it. Something.
And Thanos like, what's going on? And what's Squidward says? He says there's something entering the atmosphere, and
that's the last we see of him.
Well,
no, it's not.
No, not quite.
Last scene we see of his ship.
Yes,
because Captain Marvel saves the day, and just
this whole and this is where I'm interested to see if this was just a fun moment or if this is a teaser for Phase 4. Right. But A-Force is the all female. It's basically all the females of the MCU or the Marvel universe coming together and forming a team. And it's the Avengers, but it's a female cast.
Because they've teased the idea of doing this movie, especially in the current wave of you got Wonder Woman, Captain Marvel, Black Widow getting her own movie finally, Valkyrie having a prominent role in Thor Ragnarok. So they've been teasing this idea a little bit.
And I think after seeing them all work together in that short burst of time, I want to see an A-Force movie.
Oh yeah.
Just
I also,
phenomenal.
Before we get to that point, I just love the shot of Peter Parker just clutching
the
Infinity Gauntlet to his chest, and Captain Marvel just essentially says I got it.
Hi, my name's Peter Parker.
Hi, my name's Peter.
I think it's and it didn't hit me until just now, and it might make it a little sad again. But so this whole all the women coming together is a callback to Infinity War when Okoye and Black Widow help out Scarlet Witch against the female character of the Black Order. There's only one woman missing from this group,
and that's Black
Widow. So the callback of them helping her out then gets called back again. There was no mention of her, but I mean there really didn't need to be. No. But I think that was rough to see that all of the women of the MCU were there together in that moment, except for one.
And it was a great, just an awesome sequence of, again, passing it off one after the other. How is she going to get from here to there? And they're like, we got this.
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah.
Because I will say one thing I noticed is this movie, as many female superhero characters as they are, not prominent in this film. There's a bit of a sausage fest of a movie. But since the focus of it was so much on the original crew was mostly dudes.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
yeah,
it didn't feel like it was on purpose, didn't feel forced. I mean, it felt natural. It was still nice to get that sequence of just girl power, y'all.
Yeah, and I think Phase 4 is going to be filled with that.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't need to force it because realistically, the original Avengers had one woman, so you don't want to overpower the amount of time, especially with Captain Marvel, not wanting to take over this movie like we had said. There's not a whole lot you can do. Black Panther was a good start for that because there are so many important female characters, Shuri and I can't remember.
The entire Okoye,
but who's the other one?
His girlfriend.
Yeah.
Which was absent from both
Nyong'o's
movies.
character. She wasn't there at all, yeah.
She's busy doing Star Wars.
So, yeah, I'm not quite sure.
Same with Lady Sif. Lady Sif is busy doing that show on NBC.
And she was one that they had mentioned, too, that she was supposed to have survived.
Yeah.
But,
Valkyrie's
taken over.
She is. And also, Jamie Alexander has got a very busy schedule because her show on NBC is a huge hit. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, we almost make it.
Almost. They get very close. Thanos throws his sword into the van, explodes it, and they have no way of returning the stones at this point. There's a nice little short battle between Captain Marvel and Thanos.
Oh, it's a good fight.
At which point you think that this is where she comes into play, and I believed at this point this is her going to defeat him. Until he takes the Power Stone out of the gauntlet and uses its force, by itself completely against
which he
her.
had to do.
And that was it. If he hadn't done that, she's got it off of him, and it's game over for him. So he's able to do that. Tony steps in at the last second, right before Thanos snaps, and then you have another moment where Tony kind of gets shrugged off. Thanos actually does snap, but turns the gauntlet over to find that none of the stones are there. And before he makes that snap, he says his line that he had kind of reflected upon earlier, where it's like, no matter what you do, I am inevitable. Mm-hmm. Like, this is going to happen. It happened once, it'll happen every single time you try to go around it. I am inevitable. And Tony says his line as he pulls up and you realize that he has all the stones, that he says, well, that's great, but I'm Iron Man.
And
snap. And for me, it was just as painful seeing all of Thanos' army become disintegrated, just because of the impact of what it truly is. You didn't feel as empathetic toward them as you did the other characters in Infinity War, but seeing them just helplessly fall into nothingness, it was still brutal.
It's a lot of death.
Yeah,
it's a lot of death.
So Tony snaps all of Thanos' army out of existence, including Thanos himself, who is the last one to go, so he gets to see it all crumble around him before then he himself also falls to the dust.
I thought for just one fleeting second they weren't going to kill off Thanos.
So did I.
That they were going to make him sit there and basically have to just reflect on his defeat.
Well, that's what they do in the comics.
Yeah.
They don't kill him. They make him be part of the universe that he wanted to destroy, essentially.
And going back to your moment, to the thing you mentioned at the beginning of the show, I thought they were going to send him back to the garden and leave him there and basically say, cool, you get to live in your garden knowing you failed.
Yeah.
That you came so close and still failed. But having him also get wiped out does kind of tie that ribbon on top of, like, because the Russos had said, like, this is the end of the Thanos Infinity Saga, whatever they're calling it. Mm-hmm. This kind of just makes it so, like, okay, so he's not coming back. No. We can move on 100%.
Never say never in Marvel.
Yeah, that's true. You know, all we have to do is go back into another timeline and Thanos is around again. But yeah, I think
go
it's
back
a
to
good
2013 and find things.
Yeah. I think it's a good end, like a closing the book on Thanos. Yeah. Like, you could have, like, you've got this extra chapter that might be out there somewhere, but I don't think we need it. You know, we all have spent enough time getting ready for this and watching this. I'm ready to see what happens next, and I don't need Thanos in the back of my mind. Like, he might come back, and there might be some more Infinity issues to go through. Like, no, I've seen it. We've gone through it. Let's move on.
Yeah. It was honestly considering what we did lose, even though some of it wasn't permanent. Having to live through Spider-Man saying, I don't want to go, I don't feel good, he deserved to die.
Yeah. Yep. So as a result of the snap, we saw what it did to Hulk. It pretty much took Hulk out of commission with his whole arm. It pretty much ruined Thanos in the original timeline. After we see Tony snap, he is a shell of Thanos and Hulk. He's pretty much in a catatonic state. There's nothing left of him. He's able to kind of make a few gestures and some like small words that he's trying to form, but he's pretty much dead from the snap on. Yeah.
He gets like one fleeting moment to, you know, say goodbye to Pepper.
Yeah.
And I love. I'm admittedly not the biggest Gwyneth Paltrow fan. I haven't loved their usage of Pepper Potts throughout most of the movies. I love her goodbye to Tony.
Yeah.
Because it harks back to earlier when, you know, when she asked him if he was going to help or not. She goes, I just want to go to bed. And she goes, you're going to be able to rest, though.
And she tells him, you can rest now. Like, we're all safe.
Perfect.
Instant waterworks.
Yeah.
Instant waterworks.
Jordan's moment of this, as we were talking, is, I didn't even think of it this way, but she's like, she had said that Pepper's speaking on behalf of all of us fans as well.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Letting him go, you know, like...
Good for you, Jordan.
Yeah. Yeah, when she said that, I'm like, oh, I didn't see it that way. I saw it as, like, for all of the people in the MCU, yes. But she said, like, it's okay, you can go. Look at what you've done for all of us. Yeah. This is your chance now to rest and, you know, go off into the sunset and do something else because, you know, thank you, Tony, but Robert Downey Jr. rose from the ashes to become Iron Man.
Yeah.
And revitalized not just his career, but an entire genre. Like, with his success with Iron Man, then we have all of this opportunity to go through and have, you know, Infinity War and Endgame and all that's still to come. So, a really monumental line there from Gwyneth Paltrow.
And we get into what is probably the slowest part of the movie, but also, I mean, rightfully slow. Rightfully so. But, you know, it's that... after everything we have been through from the beginning of Infinity War, because Infinity War didn't let up once.
No.
And carrying right into Endgame, this is finally our moment of being able to come down.
Take everything in.
And this is where you see, this is the funeral for Tony. And this is where I don't think there was a dry eye in the house. As you see everybody essentially say their goodbyes to Tony, and you have... the realization from, like, Bruce talking to Clint saying, like, when he snapped, he really tried to bring back Natasha. Like, and all these different things that people were saying of, like, trying to make everything perfect for everyone. And all those realizations that we're in a world without Tony, without Black Widow. You know, all of this that is to come. But that slow pan after they put his ashes out to the lake... and it's got the callback from Iron Man 1 that says, you know, proof that Tony Stark has a heart. There, and then the pan through all the characters that interacted with him. And I think I was crying during that, but when I saw Harley, I reached out to, and this is not hyperbole, reached out to the screen and, like, clutched with my other hand my chest.
Oh, man.
It ruined me, and I was a sobbing mess. But to see Nick Fury come back and Captain Marvel on the steps, and it's a culmination of everything that was and will be in the MCU, and it all revolved around Tony Stark.
I really like the scene between Happy and his daughter.
Oh,
and that was just
man.
heartbreaking. And she goes, "What?"
Cheeseburgers.
And he goes, "What do you want? Cheeseburgers." Your dad loved cheeseburgers.
I'll give you all the cheeseburgers.
Yeah,
I'll give you all the
you want.
cheeseburgers.
Holy
you
shit!
want.
I was done. I was done. Oh.
And then I also the scene between Clint and Wanda, Scarlet Witch, to acknowledge the loss of Natasha and the loss of Quicksilver, I think was really
And Vision.
Yeah, and Vision. I mean, the loss of those characters and the fact that they're ones that are not coming back.
And yet, what I find poignant about that scene is it's love. It's love lost being mourned, but it's three different kinds of love.
Mm-hmm.
It's love between friends, love between siblings, and love between lovers. And it just...
We do get another a little tease for me, who I think is going to happen. Tony's gone, but in the comics, he becomes essentially a computer program, an AI version, and he coaches. Is it Riri Williams?
Yeah,
who becomes Ironheart?
Thank you. Yeah, I can remember her name.
We may be seeing that because of the way in which he kind of. He uploaded not himself, but we don't know what he may or may not have done else that night.
If it was just like a video will.
It's a video will, or a goodbye, and the line "I love you 3000," which has now become like the motto. You know, I was actually just looking on Twitter, and Marvel Studios has a thank you for everybody who's been part of this, and it's got, you know, thank you for everyone who's followed us, and it's got all of the logos from all the films, and the actual tweet says "We love you 3000."
That's going to be in everybody's wedding vows for the next 3 years.
Jordan, you and I need to get remarried so I can say that I love you 3000.
Don't you dare.
Were you guys just talking about doing a vow renewal? I swear.
I'm doing it.
I will call you guys so lame.
Have a baby first. Come on.
If we're picking out lines for wedding renewals, I claim That's America's Ass. Just so you guys know. For my wife to say. Okay.
And what I like about this scene too is with the you know, the Tony Stark has a heart thing, that to me is like that then makes it so that every film in the MCU up to this point has now been referenced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because other than having Iron Man 1 at that point was the only film in Endgame that had not in some way been referenced or played back to. And with that, like, we have now come completely full circle, ending with this quintessential moment from the first movie as essentially the last, you know, scene other than what's about to happen in this movie.
Yeah. And we get a nice bow tied on to Cap as Captain America goes, and he has to go back and put back all the stones, puts back Mjolnir, but he doesn't come back. He actually is supposed to come back 5 seconds later, and no one comes through. At which point, Winter Soldier looks across. Bucky sees someone sitting down, and it's an older Steve Rogers.
Great makeup, by the way.
Very well done.
Yeah.
So good. Clearly not CGI. This
No,
is a makeup
no,
job. This
yeah.
is really well done. And Sam Falcon goes over and talks to him. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And you know, he shakes his hand at one point, and you see the wedding ring. And Sam like even points. He's like, "You gonna tell me about her?" Like,
nope.
And he's like, "Oh, no, I'm not going to." Before he does that, though, he hands him the shield, which I think everybody was kind of wondering. Both Bucky and Falcon have been in the comics Captain America, so either of them could have taken it up. But it is Falcon who will be the next Captain America.
I think Falcon makes the most sense for two reasons. One, in the comics, the Bucky version of Captain America, not popular, was not liked by fans for the most part. Also, we haven't spent a lot of time with Bucky.
At least not as like a good character.
Yeah,
like
no.
Bucky
Yeah,
has
I
always
agree.
been in the MCU has been kind of the moral ambiguity of the character, whereas Falcon he's been the right hand to Cap. He's been the moral compass in a lot of instances, so it makes a lot of sense, I think, to hand it off to that character more.
Outside of Civil War, he's just been more of a lead character.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's in Winter Soldier because he is the Winter Soldier, but we don't do a whole lot with him. He doesn't have a lot of dialogue. He's just there to kick people's asses. In Civil War, we start to get more, but not a lot, and then he's in Infinity War for 5 minutes.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that it's kind of ambiguous because we know with Disney Plus that they're getting a series together. So you could have put it on either, and the other is going to be just as involved. I'm happy with Falcon getting it because that follows kind of the more recent trend of in the comics with Captain America going to Falcon, which I think that really follows into what's going to come next.
But they also leave the door for him to come back because he does have a later version of Captain America where he's old.
Yeah, there's another one. He's not that old, but yeah, it's still there.
I think we'll see him again as Old Man Cap in like a cameo scene, maybe even in the Falcon Winter Soldier series, offering counsel or something.
Let's not forget about Thor too. Thor leaves with Guardians of the Galaxy,
and leaves Valkyrie as the Queen of New Asgard.
Now, which I think we are going to get. There's an actual comic series called The Asgardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
That may actually be where we go with that. And as you mentioned, going up into the cosmos and the cosmic realm, I think that's going to be that could actually be the title of it. It could be The Asgardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Or something along those lines. That'd be kind of cool.
Pretty great. And of course, we have the funny moment between Quill and Thor. Oh yeah, we all know who the captain is. When really it's
I can't wait to get a whole movie of their dynamic.
Yeah,
it's going to be phenomenal. I mean, it's basically take Volume 2 and Ragnarok and put them together, and those are probably two of the funniest movies that they've put out. Yeah. It'll be a good one. We do know though that at the very end that. He did go back for Peggy. That Steve Rogers went back for Peggy, and that's actually where the movie ends, is with them dancing and getting their kiss. Time theories notwithstanding, that's how the film ends. There are no post-credit scenes. There are no mid-credit scenes. There is a nice little send-off with the credits themselves that I thought was very tasteful, with with everybody that was kind of any sort of a player in the films getting a moment. But then the last going to the 6 original Avengers getting their signed title cards essentially was really cool.
There was a post.
There was something
sound.
It's the sound of Tony banging on the metal from Iron Man 1.
Yeah. So it's a lot of people a lot of people have questioned: is it a tip of the cap just to him, or is it a hint that someone is going to pick up that mantle at some point?
Yeah, I would love to see Riri Williams. Not soon, but I mean, maybe middle of Phase 5 or something like that.
There's the potential for that. People, I mean, there's been question: well, is Harley Keener gonna pick up something now that he's kind of more of an adult character, and the fact that he showed up in this scene? That's been kind of the question: is it just an homage to Iron Man as the first character of the MCU, or is it a hint for the future?
I think if we see anything to do with Iron Man again, be it a new character, Ironheart or otherwise, I think it's not gonna be for a while.
It'll be. I think it would be in the next saga, but late.
Because it's like so the conversation right now is, do the X-Men get involved, and they have said if they do, they're not going to touch Wolverine for a while, because we just had Logan. 20 years is the same. That's a character right now. Leave it alone. You can come back to that.
Let it rest.
As a huge fan of the X-Men, as a comic book character, the movies have been very hit and miss for me. I am dying to see how they handle the characters, particularly Rogue. Rogue is one of my favorite X-Men characters of all time. The fact that she has been horribly mishandled by 20th Century Fox. And I think the fact that we have Carol Danvers and we have Rogue, you have the potential to see a really awesome standoff between the two of them. Because, I mean, Rogue's origin story, she's raised by Mystique. She's a villain character to start things, and she kills Captain Marvel. She kills Carol Danvers in the comics. So to potentially see that dynamic between those two characters when her character has been so mishandled in the movies would be
they're
amazing.
Both major players in A-Force. Well, I say they're both pretty. I mean, She-Hulk's a main character within it, but outside of that, those two and Spider-Woman are major players on the team. So it'd be interesting. I mean, it would be really cool. So.
And there's been some conversation, because last year we had Civil War 2 take place in the comic books.
Yeah, not as good.
Not as good, not as well received. And A, because of that, and also just B, because of the way they've done the Civil War in the movies. I don't think there's a chance in hell they're ever going to touch that. Because it did have Captain Marvel in a big part.
Very large part, yeah.
But I don't think there's a chance that ever comes to fruition in the comics. Or in the movies, rather.
Well, something that I want to know as we're getting close to wrapping this up is, where do you guys think we're going next? What are some of the films outside of the ones that we know? What do you think's coming in Phase 4? Who do you think the next, Thanos is going to be? What is coming up next? We know Far From Home's going to include Power Man and Mysterio.
Wait. Power Man?
Power Man, Hydra Man. Yep.
I've also heard that.
If you look in, they're fighting a big guy out of sand, it's not Sandman.
Yeah.
Well, they have the elementals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I've also heard that Chameleon's in this one too.
I think
not really
we're gonna
Nick
get a
Fury.
Sinister Six soon.
That's
sooner
not really...
rather than later, because it was already in conversation.
Yeah.
With Sony. I think we'll get a Sinister Six maybe at the beginning of Phase 5.
They've been trying to make that happen for a while.
Yeah. And now the fact that they've got Vulture and they'll have Mysterio and Scorpion, who's already in the universe, they've got half of them already.
And Shocker,
Shocker's
technically.
there.
I mean,
really, they just need to include either a Green Goblin
or a Doc Ock
or something like that, and then they can make one.
So I think as far as where the MCU goes from here, big bad and all that, I think what we're going to wind up seeing is because there's Doctor Strange has that post-credit scene with Mordo going around saying, there's too many magic users or whatever.
Yeah.
I think our next big bad turns out to be Dormammu. Because Doctor Strange's stuff deals a lot with cosmic, otherworldly, interdimensional stuff. I think between him and what Captain Marvel's going to open up, I think we see Dormammu and Mordo kind of take that. I think Baron Mordo's going to start causing a lot more trouble, especially when we get to Doctor Strange 2, which they're already in pre-production for. I think Dormammu, because Kevin, and this is, again, it's a little bit inside baseball, but, Kevin Feige has said, because they didn't know what was going on with the Fox deal, he has no control over that. That's all Disney. He had to make his plan for the next 5 years without assuming there was going to be involvement from the Fox characters.
Yeah.
So now, like in the case of Spider-Man, can he find a way to work it all in there? Sure, he's Kevin Feige, our Lord and Savior. All hail Kevin Feige. But he sits on a throne while nubile slave boys fan him with Avengers comic books. I mean, it's just what I like to picture before I go to bed at night. So I think it's going to be something in those lines. I think Galactus is a possibility. I think they need to tread carefully because of the way that Fox has foobarred the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
3 movies in a row. I think that's a title that they don't touch for a while until they know they've got it.
I think they start fast tracking Doctor Doom.
I think that's what I was.
The possibilities that they have.
Doom is going to be. That was even the one that both of the Russo brothers. Granted, we know that they're done. Let them run off into the sunset, a la Thanos.
But they wanted.
Yeah, they've done it. But they said if they had the opportunity, the next one they would do was Doom.
Wow.
So even they know how important Doom could be as the next Thanos. Yeah. So, as you said, the cosmic ability, if Doom once he gets his powers on that, you've got, Secret War, and, you've got so many different things that Doom can be incorporated with, and he was never done well, in the previous films. So.
And I really do feel like the MCU wants to get more out of Doctor Strange, because Doctor Strange and Tony Stark are a little interchangeable character-wise. That's just how they've always been. And so I think with Iron Man now no longer in the picture, you can now lean a bit, because that was one of the big complaints people had about Doctor Strange, was it's too much like Tony Stark. Well, now that Tony Stark's not there, you can lean on that character a bit more. And I think that me personally, like, Doctor Strange is like my top 5 MCU films. I freaking love that movie. I think that's a character that opens up a lot more possibilities as far as what you can go with. Again, the dimensional stuff, working in, like, the mutants and the cosmic realms and all that. And especially now that, who would have thought the stuff from Ant-Man was going to play such a huge role in one of the Avengers movies?
Right. Yeah, everybody gave so much shit to Ant-Man because they're like, it's Ant-Man. No, it really played a huge role. Yeah. And I thought it was, I thought it was really great.
Kevin Feige knew.
Kevin Feige knows all.
Yeah. No, I really do think. I think we might in the next phase see the introduction of Miss Marvel of Kamala Khan.
That'd be cool.
I think that'd be something that we'll start looking at. Nova, perhaps, maybe a Young Avengers, something along those lines might be in the works to get started.
Right now, I know that right now the rumors are that outside of the Eternals and the sequels we're getting, that I know that Nova and I believe I've heard the Silver Surfer are currently in the equation of ones they're looking at of getting started on now.
Yeah.
So.
Well, as soon as you get Silver Surfer involved, Galactus will be shortly after.
Yeah.
So.
But I don't think I don't think Fantastic Four comes into play for a while. I actually think that would be best served as like a period piece on like Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Because then you can go full cheese with it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I could see that. So I'm hoping Doom's the next baddie, because after Thanos, I kind of feel like we need somebody along the same lines, but in a whole new light. No power, no physical power at all. The mentality of Doctor Doom. So, all right. Well, we are getting close to the end here, so we're gonna do things the same way we always do things on Drive-In. We're gonna figure out. We're gonna figure out a rating scale, and we're gonna rate Endgame on this. We could do power cores, in honor of Tony. We could do things.
Seems to me with the snaps, you have to do Infinity Stones. 1 to 5 Infinity Stones.
Or how many snaps do you give this movie?
Ooh.
Can we just love it 3,000?
I was going to say,
how many
thousands do you love this movie?
We've got 4 of us. You get your own rating scale. You don't
Okay.
have to give it a whole lot of attention to detail because we're coming on the end. But
Like
you
one
get
out-
to you get to get your own rating scale, and we got about 6 minutes. So let's roll. 5 minutes. Let's go.
Yeah. I'll start off. I love this. I'll mix 2 memes together. I love this thing over 9,000. The stuff I have to pick at it is nitpicky as hell. I can't wait to go see this again. All the screenings this week are taken, so I can't go. I've been looking. The roller coaster of emotions I felt. The level, I said this in my tweet, the level of satisfaction I got out of this movie is what I think all Game of Thrones fans are hoping to get this season. The fact that we get the conclusion of 2 epic sagas in the same year, month, whatever, is just amazing. So
I had to give this a lot of thought, and whenever I'm on Drive-In, me and Aaron come up with some sometimes inappropriate but ways to judge movies. I'm giving this 5 out of 5 American asses.
Yes.
This
very appropriate.
Yeah, this was everything and more for me. I think we were direct messaging each other Thursday night when you went and saw it. This did it for me and more. And I feel like a part of this was for the fans, and a lot of this was for thank you for being fans. This was one hell of a movie, and I really don't think that it will be touched for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree. I'm ready to give this the snap. I'm 5 out of 5 Infinity Stones for this. It's so just the perfect way to wrap up 10 years of building this universe, and it's had its hits, it's had its misses, but all in all, it's been so well connected, and just the flow of the storyline has been so great to even be able to bounce back in time and do prequel movies and origin stories and still be able to keep everything moving in the same direction is huge. Just, it was a great way to close out the original Avengers team without just saying like, oh, we're just going to get rid of all of them. They all had their own kind of fitting ending to their characters, whether they were happy or sad, but a really well done way to put an end to this saga.
Well, I'm going to go back to the source. I'm going to give it 5 out of 5 shards in Tony's chest.
Ow!
You know why? Is because that's what eventually that started out Iron Man. Had he not gotten the shrapnel, we'd have no Iron Man. We have no MCU. So I'm going to go with the pieces of metal that he had to keep himself alive with. But yeah, I think it was again, it's phenomenal. It was such a great film. I always tell people, when they ask me what I think, I said I laughed, I cried, and it was everything I needed the ending to be. I know there's so much more that we're going to still get out of this.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that is also just as promising because although Black Widow and Tony and Captain America and Vision and those characters, like we know they're not coming back. There's a lot that didn't, a lot of books that were not ended with this film. There's a lot of ones that we turn the page and they've got a lot more chapters to go. So with that being said, I think it was just phenomenal, and I think we can just go off of that. That about does it for us here tonight. Next week on the Drive-In, Jordan will be with me as we look at the Netflix film about Ted Bundy, and I can't even remember the title of it now. It's just too long.
Inherently Evil, Wicked.
Yeah. We're gonna be looking at that one, and She Loves Murders and all that creepy, serial killer stuff.
Who doesn't love a good murder?
So we'll be looking at that next week, and check Facebook for more information about what is to come. You can always check me out on Get the Eck Out, and you can always get more information through Spreaker and through Eventide Entertainment, ENT.com. Mike, you want to give a couple shout-outs real quick and then send us off?
Yeah, remember, guys, Mike Talks Funny has a new episode on Anchor and all podcasting platforms every Monday. Tomorrow we'll be talking about the box office records that this movie Thanos snapped out of existence. $1 billion in opening weekend. Mike Talks Funny every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Follow me on Twitter and all the social media at Mike Shea Comedy. You can always tweet me #Mike Talks Movies. Ben?
I believe I have an episode of Offensive Foul dropping tomorrow, Monday. We're going to be covering the baseball season. Baseball season has started. We talk about a little bit local baseball, the Dayton Dragons, the Major League Baseball moves and stuff. So check that out tomorrow, Offensive Foul. You can find that on Facebook and Eventide Entertainment.
I got nothing. I have my own podcast. I need to get on that. I need to work on that. So nothing huge. I mean, I guess I could do the Dayton Writers Movement. They've got their new podcast that I believe is on its 6th or 7th episode now at this point. Dayton Writers Movement, The Hidden People. Download it anywhere that podcasts are available. Really cool fictional story, lots of supernatural and crime elements. So definitely check that out.
All right, cool. Well, thank you guys for coming on tonight. I think we got to go watch some Game of Thrones. Let's go head out. All right, thanks guys. Drive home safe.